Hello everybody, and welcome to the LJL Officially Unofficial Podcast. I am your host, Alex, otherwise known as Lexi, and I have got my incredible co-hosts. First of them, it's the remarkable Initia1ise, otherwise known as Sam Hapgood, and his extraordinary brother, Nymaera, otherwise known as Alex Hapgood. As I say always, gentlemen, please introduce yourselves.
These compliments get more and more superlative every week. It's pretty great.
It's a process.
It's getting there.
Trust the process.
I'm Sam. It's nice to be back doing some more content, kind of in this weirdly extended break between the sort of like the second round of playoffs and the third round of playoffs. But such is kind of A, the LJL schedule, and B, coronavirus stuff that's going on as recording and so forth. So yeah, be here and talk to you about it.
And of course, I am Alex, also known as Nymaera. I'm not Lexi. I'm not that one.
No,
But yeah, no, it's been pretty odd not doing LJL stuff like day after day after day. Last couple of weeks actually, after round 2 finished. Glad to be back doing some stuff. Got some nice things cooked up for you all today.
Yeah, it's been very surreal not talking with these gentlemen every day about LJL. I mean, we still talk almost every day, so that's at least we're not completely out of each other's lives yet. Can't get rid of them, but they're in my basement still. So I'm pulling that story. That's still going, still in there, even though there's sunlight in the background of Initia1ise. No.
I know.
It's a conspiracy. It's fake news.
I tried to get sunlight in the back of mine. They're like, nah, your camera looks shit.
No,
Nah,
get that shit off.
Like it did sort of like white out the entire
camera. It wasn't good.
It was not good. And as a former film student and a bunch of other things that my history just seems to have there, I'm like, no, bad. But we're all here today, and we have got some really exciting topic to cover. This was actually a topic originally given to us as a podcast question a few weeks back, and since introducing this, we've actually been given some pretty good content to actually now start branching out on, as assuming we are going to have a lot more downtime, as, one, we've got, as Initia1ise and Nymaera both said, we've got this weird break period time. We've still got another few more episodes of the podcast before we get there, as well as also once we hit the end and we have finals, obviously we'll have that all to talk about, and the combination and what this spring and everything did do. That's a few episodes, but after that we're gonna probably have about a month or two till we get into summer split and then eventually MSI. But before we get into everything and our topic of this week, I am going to quickly cover and do the introduction very quickly. So who are we? Well, we're 3 guys. We're English guys. We like talking about the Japanese League of Legends League. The Pro League, which is the LJL. If you couldn't figure it out, now you know. This is a podcast we run weekly, talking about everything that has been happening in the LJL, from games to recaps to our own personal opinions to players of the league, and basically trying to give the LJL some English coverage as it would be. Quick notice, we are not affiliated with Riot Games, Riot Japan, or any of their partners. The views are all of our own, and also these views do not represent the LJL Officially Unofficial. These are our own personal opinions, full stop. Our podcast is on all or almost every audio streaming platform. You can get it on Spotify, Pandora, it's on Podbean, it's on everywhere except for SoundCloud. I'm not a SoundCloud rapper. Why would I put my podcast out there? Think about it. God.
Think about it.
Check us out over on all social media. We are out on there on Twitter, Instagram. We all have our own personal ones as well. So if you're interested in asking us any other questions or potentially our thoughts on other things, we each have our unique esport games that we also are heavily invested into. So if you're interested in like card games, I'm your guy. If you want to talk, if you want to talk first-person shooters, though, I'm definitely not your guy.
If you want to talk, I mean, I only do League really. I'm such a League nerd.
I mean, but you guys are also pretty into D&D, and like we all have our own things that we're all super passionate and interested in. I've been streaming as well. I've started up streaming a little bit more, so I'm going to give myself a little plug-sies there. Been playing some Black Mesa. It was pretty good fun.
Did you manage to work your way past that random monster that was outside the
control? I did. I did.
What was the solution in the end?
So you're meant to run past it, as I did, right? and then you saw there was this room that I was like, eventually I figured out to run past it and get in. Problem is, I ran up to the top, tried to press the button, it wouldn't do anything, and I'm like, well, there's something I've got to do. And I was like, oh god, I don't know where it is. Turned out it was literally just below with the ladder I climbed up.
Love it.
Well,
Took me about 15 minutes to figure that out. That was pretty...
Sounds like Black Mesa to me.
You know what I really
Pretty
want to do? I really want to do, because Combat Evolved just got re-released on PC, I want to do another Legendary run through of that.
I'd be up for that. We could do an LJL stream of that.
Combat
I'm
Evolved was
very
like
down.
my original serious video game.
Oh, yeah.
That and Rome Total War, those two, really.
Okay.
Yeah,
Love the strategy games.
See, I got hardcore into, like, just playing competitive Halo 3.
True, yeah. See,
yeah, I
see,
got right at Halo 3. It was the one I was actually
was-
decent at.
Yeah.
I was better at Reach. Put it this way, I didn't like Reach as much as a game because I'm like hardcore original trilogy Halo fan. Because Combat
Sure.
Evolved is one
Yeah,
of the-
yeah, no, it ended with
Combat-
ODST, technically.
For me, yeah, I loved ODST
Yeah.
as well. That's actually my second favorite Halo game. It's Combat Evolved and ODST. I really like these two. But,
My tier list is very different to yours, sir.
I know, but that's what I love about the Halo series. Anyway, we should
Keep
probably
out
get back
on
to some
social
LJL
media.
stuff.
If you're interested in potentially watching the three of us play Halo together and maybe do the campaign, that might be coming to a Twitch stream near you.
That
So
sounds great fun.
we'll find out if we can actually get that worked out. That might actually be a really cool thing. And as always, elephant in the room, Corona's out there. Social distancing is more important now more than ever. As you can see, we are still exercising this. We have not done an in-person episode 10 of the podcast. This would be something to kind of celebrate and go, oh, let's do one in person. We are still very aggressively saying social distancing is the way forward, keeping yourself and those around you safe by potentially not seeing those that you really do care about, even though I do miss these two. I was going to say words that I'm not meant to say on the podcast, but I do miss these two a lot. Would be nice to see them in person, but alas, I can't, and it is going to be mine and Initialize's birthday in the next few weeks, and it's going to be sad not being able to do any in-person celebrations, but I'm sure we'll work it out and we'll go forward. But stay safe, wash your hands, and make sure you eat. Eat!
Yes, big time.
I have problems with that. I know that there's loads of people out there who will either eat loads more or loads less.
I had a Mars bar for breakfast, so I'll try and take that advice to heart.
Yeah, just make sure, try and get 2 meals
Kick
in.
him later.
Try and just get 2 meals in, because if you get 2 full meals, you're basically going to get mostly what you need in the grand scheme of things. Most people don't even eat breakfast anyway, so I mean, I'll give you a pass on that. That's more breakfast than I eat. I don't even do breakfast nowadays, but that's beside the point. I know Initialize doesn't do breakfast anyway, so
I don't really do breakfast.
so it's fine.
I also do not.
Well, with that incredible
By the way,
tangent,
the best people you've been taking nutritional advice from.
I mean, I started looking
As
into
we
it.
say, not as we do.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Throughout this podcast episode, as we've had a 8-minute tangent to begin our episode, which I think is true to us. This is going to be a much shorter episode of the podcast because we've only got one topic to cover. This is obviously still, we're probably going to somehow draw it out for far longer than it needs to, but we will do that. I'm going to let Initialize and Nymaera explain that topic once we get there, as it's going to be most of our thoughts. We're not going to be having any meta talk this week, as we're choosing to have some restraint, and Nymaera can go far more into it very closer to playoffs and round 3, and it gives him a bit of time to really kind of expand any of his thoughts, and potentially we're going to have at least an hour and a half conversation on that. So your 20-minute, 30-minute meta talk is just going to be condensed into a much larger section of a future podcast.
There are reasons for that as well, because the playoffs are all on one patch. We're going to have like 4 or 5 patches to cover. It's going to be a little bit crazy.
We're then going to go into our small talk section. We're potentially going to talk about, obviously, the new game that Riot has just released, as well as anything else on our minds that comes up in small talk, as well as your questions that has been asked over on our Discord, which we will be answering for all of you. But with that all said, that's the introduction done. That's my main bit of stuff I need to make sure I cover every episode before I round us out. Initialize and Nymaera, could you gentlemen explain to us what our main topic is of this week, gentlemen?
Should I take?
Yeah, go. One,
for it,
one of you.
So, yeah,
one of you start.
So we're going to be covering a question that came up in the LJL Discord a couple weeks back, and we said we'd have a look at it and probably do a little bit more in depth. And that is all pro teams. So we're gonna have a think about our own personal all pro teams for the LJL. So it'll be first team, second team, third team, much like the NALCS does. And beyond that, once we've kind of given our own individual all pro teams, we'll kind of take those players and the players we put into those various teams and kind of collate a sort of all pro team from all of the three of our sort of various picks.
Yeah, so basically, for those of you that kind of watched our pre-playoffs episode and stuff like that, we did a lot of power rankings, and we also did MVP of the split, player of the week kind of stuff. The thing about doing a player of the week for each role and overall, is that it can kind of become a bit cold hard numbersy, and you can kind of say, oh, this person performed really well this week in the context of that week, but it doesn't necessarily have like the tracking of like consistent performances. What happens if someone doesn't get players of the week but is consistently second or third throughout the whole of it? Maybe we value that a little bit more than just like very spiky performances. We had a couple of players who just absolutely turn it on and then sometimes fall apart. So it's kind of a time for us to more subjectively, after kind of spending the whole split watching these players, form up our top three for each role, and therefore make our three teams out of the players that we've watched, and hopefully we'll come to some kind of concordance on that. We'll hopefully have some discussion to have as well, because I know I didn't find it easy to do all three, actually. Sometimes it's easier to have the numbers there to kind of go, oh, well, the numbers tell the story. It's not always like that, because, of course, now we've had a couple of playoff series as well, which might taint our views a little bit. I don't know about you guys.
Little bit. It's definitely tainted it a tiny bit.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not going to lie.
There are a couple of layers I'm like, ooh, that might change something. But yeah, so that's effectively what we're going to be doing.
So this question was originally given us to a member of the Discord who's been with us for actually since we basically kind of started, and they actually found us over on Twitter. It was...
They did.
Galeworth? Otherwise...
Glowworth.
God, everybody knows I'm terrible with names. Otherwise known as Emma. Go follow her on Twitter. She's really helpful. Very good for Leagueopedia, and really does know a lot.
She's also part of loads of like the major region discords as well. I know she's part of the LCK Discord.
So I mean, she's around. She's got information for us about the LJL and emerging regions and everything. Like, great contacts. Honestly, big shout out to her. She's been a huge help in general.
Thank you. And also thank you for being around and chatting as well. It's nice having you.
Oh yeah, I mean, she taught me how to use the Leagueopedia and stuff, so I could do some assistant edits and stuff, and and got me in the server and helped me out and stuff. So yeah, no, seriously, huge shout out. And then obviously this question that she gave us was so good that now we're doing a whole episode on it. So want to give the applaud out to them. So, with that all said, now we know what we're doing. We've decided to do it in a team-based way, as I guess it would be. So how the ballots usually work, and by all means, gentlemen, please correct me. I looked at the LCS ballots, how they normally do it, because they get made public, and obviously 2020 spring for them has been released, and they're all-pro team that eventually was the top team was just C9, which I don't think anyone is surprised about at all.
No.
Basically, what we're doing is typically the ballots are divided into roles, and then you just kind of go, well, I think this is the best player, this is the second best player, this is the third best player. We're going to go from the third best players group of 5 that we've slotted and kind of call that a team, as it would be. And then we're going to go from team 3 to team 2 to then our best team. However that stands, maybe it'll be just a standard team and we're doing a similar to C9. Maybe it's all just DFM or Sengoku. Who knows? We do, because we've already done our power. We've already done it for you, so we know what we're doing. But you guys will have to find out and listen. So, gentlemen, Initia1ise.
Yes.
Do you mind reading me out team number 3, your third best team for the LJL?
Well, welcome to tonight's all-pro team show, and for the third place team by Initia1ise's ballots, they are in the top lane, Ray Farkey, in the jungle, Steel, in the mid lane, Gary Aru, in the bot lane, Art, and joining him in support for this final all-team third place spot, it'll be Corporal as the support player.
Okay,
Okay.
do you want me to go next?
Nymaera, please.
And for Nymaera's third all-pro team, in the top lane, Paz. In the jungle, blank, I'm going to drop that voice. In the mid lane, I have Pyrian, actually. In ADC, Utapon. And in support, Corporal. So that's 2 votes for Corporal.
Okay, interesting. I kind of want to do the let's get ready to rumble voice, but it's been a very long time. I'm almost tempted to do Fiddlesticks. I've been practicing the new Fiddlesticks voice.
Christ.
God, it takes a lot of you to do that. But I've been practicing
It's not all
it.
inhale. It's not all inhale.
Can we exercise? Do we need an exorcism?
It's doing the breathing in, but it's actually you're breathing out. The
Yeah,
it's so weird. It's so weird to use your throat and your yeah. So top lane, I have Wraitharky.
I just about got that.
In the jungle, I have Hatchametcher. In mid lane, though, we have Ace. In the bot lane, though, Archer. His arch always goes true. And as support, 3 for 3, we have Corporal. I don't know what that voice was halfway through. I think I just did generic anime protagonist.
Generic anime protagonist.
Yeah. So that's 3 votes for Corporal. I think he has very much defined himself as the 3rd best support in a region that this is his first split in playing in. And frankly, for me, he's also, I'm gonna give a spoiler, he's also the only Axis player to make my lists in all of them. Big praise to him. I just want to release that bit of information because I really want to hammer home for him.
Yeah, no, I think Corporal is a worthy addition to the support. I know he made Sam's power rankings for playoffs as well, just about like rank 9 or 10 or something like that. He was close to me on there too. I think that while there have been the top kind of 1 or 2 supports has been quite well set. Kind of the middle pack has been. In the middle and the bottom of the pack's a bit harder to decide, but Corporal really does kind of rise above that. I think given another split or 2, he could really start making his mark, because I think that he has been very consistent, even when he has been hammered in the laning phase a little bit by some of the really strong 2v2s we have in the LJL. So yeah, I think his team fighting in particular really, really impressed me, so I can't wait to see how far this guy goes.
I quite like his vision for playmaking too. Like, I think on things like Thresh, despite having I think he's got a fairly bad win rate, might even be completely not have got a win on Thresh, which I appreciate. Which I feel is kind of a little bit criminal, considering actually his kind of vision for playmaking is really strong. So like, he just in terms of the way he can kind of plan out and then execute a play, I find quite interesting. And like his kind of problem solving from tricky situations, like let's use the scuttle crab as a minion taxi to get myself out of here with a death sentence into a flay. You know, that kind of thinking I find quite convincing as to why I think there's a lot of room for this player to end up in a pretty high position in future power rank.
Right, so
I mean,
I guess one where we all differed on was jungle. That's one thing.
Yeah,
so
that's an interesting one.
Yeah, I went blank, Sam went steel, you went Hatchametcher.
Yeah.
So that obviously shows where our thought processes are starting to diverge a bit. So blank coming into playoffs, I didn't actually power rank him that high, I don't think.
I did.
But you did. Whereas he has actually made my list here in 3rd, which probably means that Sam's probably gotten a bit higher. Actually, maybe we'll see. But no, I think that Steel in particular, where you've got him at 3rd there, I also was a bit down on him in playoffs. But I think that overall, remember back in like weeks 1 and 2, this guy was an absolute monster. I really enjoyed watching a lot of these guys throughout the split.
Yeah, I mean, I just put Hatchametcher because I was just very impressed with their play. And also, I think they're one of the players of the Rascal Jesters that
true.
kind of put them in a spot to potentially go deeper into playoffs.
Yeah.
Oh, he was manhandling Yoshi in their series versus CGA, but it obviously didn't work out.
He didn't.
Yoshi pulled it back in the end, unfortunately, for
Well, I mean, did he pull it back or the rest of the team?
I think a certain amount of Yoshi as well. But like that was the reason actually I did have Yoshi. No, not Yoshi. Hatchametcher down. And down at fourth. I was kind of doing a bit of
Sure.
the debate there, but I did side over Steely Engines because I thought there
That's
was a
fair.
bit more consistency.
The thing is that like there are a lot of players here, which I don't want to talk about quite yet, because I don't know if they're going to show up again. Do you want to go through the second team, guys?
I mean, I just want to also, I think the one other thing is obviously our mid laners and bot laners were also somewhat different, somewhat similar, if I remember rightly. There was a tiny bit of crossover.
So mid lane, I went for Pyrion. Sam went for Gadiadu.
Oh, I went for Ice.
And you went for Ace.
Really?
So I guess for me, Ace was probably for me. That's the one which I wouldn't have said, because I actually think the mid lane talent pool has been really strong this split. And Ace, I think, has had. I've had a couple of question marks, but of course he has had some very good games as well. And of course, it's on V3 who are doing very well at this point. So do you want to kind of lead through your thought process on that?
I mean, I just think Ace, arguably over the last few weeks, has actually very much come to a play of their own.
True.
I mean, you don't get to kind of have the last 2 weeks of playoffs. You don't get to go super weak, go undefeated through super week, just relying on top lane of Paz and jungle. Like, you just don't get Boogie and Paz to just kind of go dot, dot, dot. No, Ace had to turn it on and to definitely had to play against some of the best players in the region to make it a really deep run, and I've been actually super impressed. And he's a player that, frankly, I'm kind of surprised is not on your radars, frankly.
Yeah, no,
I still have my problems with him.
Okay, I mean, like, I think that particularly through playoffs, he's been very impressive, and I think that he's.
I'm definitely getting tainted by playoffs, 100%.
Yeah, no, there's something about that. I think that. Yeah, Ace has had some really good Syndra games now. His LeBlanc games, when he's managed to get that too, has been pretty terrifying. And of course, in their win over Axes, he had that huge, like, 7-kill Syndra game as well. So I think that he's definitely stepped it up. For me, just in terms of his consistency throughout the split, I think that, so for me, Pyrion was my mid laner in third. I think that Pyrion, we've also seen some great things in playoffs against him. Of course, they took down Sengoku in their last series, and towards the end of the split, he was becoming a real rock to focus around. So I think that, although this is on third team, this is probably where we start kind of scratching our heads and going, crap, who do we put in here?
I mean, I would definitely agree with that statement. I mean, third team is where, in a ballot-based system, they would get 1 point, basically.
Yeah,
so these are players where 1 point consistently will push you basically into definite spot into Team 3 or potentially Team 2, depending on how voting goes, if other players just don't get votes. Whereas obviously, whereas it's only 3 of us doing ballots at the moment, who knows in the future? At the moment, I think it's definitely a point where obviously this is also personal preference coming into this.
I mean, yeah, I think that's absolutely true. I think the personal preference does come in. I think I still had my issues with Ace, so for me as to why I didn't put him in third, like, he's not on my list.
Yeah.
But it's basically because, like, I think his Syndra and his LeBlanc are genuinely great. I think his Rumble is good. Everything else I've seen from him has actually looked a bit mediocre to me for that, and I've still not been I've loved his roaming. I've not liked his laning. And that's made me a little bit nervous. But the fact is, actually, his roaming with Boogie has been really instrumental, and that's been very important to how V3 have won, is him being in the right place at the right time. I think it's cost him in lane, and I sometimes worry about what he does outside of those things.
And can we have a chat about Gadiadu, Sam, actually?
Yeah.
You mentioned him. He was in my power rankings. I put him up really high. I've been really big on this guy throughout the split. I didn't actually put him in my all-pro teams, which is kind of sad for me, but I think that he has been so consistent. Even when Axis were really crap at the start of the split, this guy was doing things, which was something to be said at that point in time for Axis, I think. So why did you put him in third? Oh, sorry. I know. I'm like absolutely taking over hosting stuff here, but we're like seeing.
I was just going to go on to the next one because I think.
I just wanted to.
Yeah, go ahead. Answer the question.
I'll cover why I thought Gary was specifically because I have been quite I was trying to work out who I wanted to put in third, and in the end, I kind of went, this guy has played a lot of champions to quite a high level. I think even when Axis were doing poorly, he was still quite good. And actually, his numbers have been very, very good. Like his DPM, his goal difference, or his goal percentages and stuff have been very good. So for me, it's just like, actually, I think he's been quite good. And then he's also pulled out the clutch plays, like getting on to Archer in that V3 game in the regular season on the that kind of thing. Where I've gone, actually, there is a little bit of magic in this play. So.
I can see that. Let's go over to our number 2 teams so we can start doing a bit of comparison between our teams
Let you do
number
stop talking
3
about
and
my
our
host
number
duty.
2 teams. I'm going to let Nymaera begin our teams for this
Ooh.
one.
Woohoo.
Okay, so my second team was in the top lane at Rayfarki. You both had him in your third team. I decided to bump him up into second. In jungle, I had Steel, which Sam had in his third team. In mid, I actually have Seros, which, for those of you who have listened to our podcast, might be a
From
little
you?
bit strange
From
about.
you?
In second place, I have Art, and in ADC, and in support, I have Reyna. So I'll let you pass that.
Well, what is this kind of flip-flopping from the previous episode where he's like, nah, these Steel and Seros guys, you know, a slight vindication for me, but I've got neither of them there. I had Steel in third, but I've got Paz as my top laner.
Okay.
I've got Blank in the jungle. I've got Pyrian in the and then Utapon and Reyna at bot lane.
Okay.
Sam, legit, that is 4 out of 5 my third team and your second.
Yeah.
My top laner is Apperman. In jungle, I've got Steel, because that's his correct spot. He's meant to be second. He is meant to be second. In mid lane, I have Pyrian as well. In bot lane, I've got Utapon, and as support, I've got Enti.
Fair.
Okay, alright.
I could see that actually.
I think this is the most sensible second place team I probably could have put. The interesting one is the conversation between Apperman and Paz. I think that is a legit
Yeah. I
one.
agree.
Because I'm guessing you guys just haven't put him on the list.
I put Paz in third. I was thinking.
I'm guessing just
I
Apperman
was.
isn't on your list. Or he's
No,
either...
he's not. He's not.
He's not.
I'm guessing
But,
he was
like,
fourth for both of you.
Pretty much. Pretty
Yeah,
much,
I think so.
Yeah. Yeah.
think
See,
so.
for me, they're still in playoffs. They're guaranteed at minimum a second place spot. So by default, he's got to be the second best top laner. Am I right, lads? Or am I right?
There are a great.
It's just numbers. I just do the math.
This is the thing. When you invite a
This
poker
math for
player,
isolated death is so bad.
when you try and invite a poker player to do a subjective list, he still goes back to numbers.
Come on, he's going to get
He's not-
second. He's guaranteed second.
but-
Second. Also,
Yeah.
I like his
Also,
playstyle a lot.
Yeah,
And he's
that's
got
fair.
beautiful hair.
Yeah, his hair is pretty special.
Jeez.
I
Okay.
mean, like that's fair. Because I mean, like, the reason I think Appermen can get in despite having some slightly questionable numbers, things
I
like,
don't know
you
what you're
what's-
talking about.
So I think like he's got very high IC
Bluff.
stats.
You're
His
bluffing.
KDA
All
is
in.
good, but it's not fantastic.
Cool.
But what he really does do is play side lane pressure, like way more aggressively than like nearly any other top laner in the league.
I think
And,
It
Paz
allows
is
him to-
Paz is like
It
the
really is
only
quite-
one that really does it. Really?
I mean, I think Ebby.
I mean, Abby.
Yeah, but Ebby's
but
a
that-
different story.
Yeah, but that's kind of like that's kind
That's
of the
later.
One thing. But no, I can absolutely understand why you put it there. I think he's been very key when Sengoku Gaming were not looking good and were looking a bit lost.
I mean,
think he was
Apperman
also
beat
kind
Ebby,
of a-
so actually, no,
Right?
use that point. Fuck you, second place guaranteed. Apperman.
No, I think that Afman, he's been such a unique top laner. That's
True.
the word we're gonna use. This is like delving into the Lexi. What adjective we're gonna use? He's a unique top.
Oh
laner.
yeah, 100%.
He is a guy, like, he's the kind of guy where, like, so many people have, well, I mean, like, for instance, Ebby tried to pull out Nara in their series versus Sengoku and just couldn't make it work. Apperman would pick stuff which would team fight pretty well. He'd end up surviving in side lanes, do well, even if he was on weak side of the map, and just come into a team fight at some point and do his job, right? And that's something which a lot of top laners have tried really hard to do this split. I think that Nap and Paz have both, and Kokog as well, a lot of the other playoff top laners have tried to get to that point where they can team fight, but like haven't either managed their pressure well enough or got advantage well enough. Apperman just kind of rolls into team fights, and his team is.
He just runs in and runs out. He's like,
He
whatever.
does his thing, man.
Who's the yordle that rides that bird-like creature?
Kled.
Kled. Apperman is Kled, right? Uses the ultimate,
my
basically
days, he
runs
he's
in,
gonna-
smacks people, and then runs back out. He's not interested in afterwards.
I've got a horrible premonition that both Apperman and Ebby probably play Kled quite well.
Oh.
And I
maybe.
that maybe if we see
Kled
a final
buffs,
three
please.
match, I
Um,
can see that getting pulled out, especially considering Nara was a bit of a duff pick.
I mean, it's true. It's true. Let's go on to Initia1ise's role of choice in this game, and that is the jungle Steel. I put him there. Initia1ise, you've put him there.
I did not. I put blank.
Who am I?
So
who am I with
third.
then?
So are you with me?
Oh, I'm with you. I knew I was with somebody. Okay, so I'm with
So
Nymaera.
yeah, so Steel got second, third from the Alexes, and then Sam.
Who did you put? Initia1ise.
So
I put blank.
Huh.
So in fairness, I put him at third. I was thinking about putting him second, but I feel like just Steel's consistency throughout the split. I think his playoffs have been a bit. His end of the split has been a bit, whatever. It's not been awful in a lot of ways, but it's not necessarily DFM standard towards the end.
Yeah,
of the split.
I would agree with
Remember,
that.
They went up like 9-0. They did really well, and a lot of that is through Steel.
That's true. That is very true. It's why he's my second place for me, honestly. I mean, Initia1ise, what was your justification? Obviously, Nymaera put him in third, so very similar spot.
Yeah, so I think specifically from week 5 on, Sengoku Gaming found new life, and a lot of that was through Blank running over people in the early game. And I have been well impressed with how Blank has basically led a lot of what Sengoku Gaming want to do in the early and mid games, and a lot of great stuff around objective control. And his gank paths and his reads on opponent junglers have been second. He has made Hatcher Mecha look pretty suspect in their games. We've seen things like Auto versus Steel. We saw kind of the level ones when they did work out for Sengoku Gaming were often basically off the back of Blank having a very good read on Steel. And things like his Elise pick, his Kiana pick have been really good. Really good. Yeah.
No, I think that Blank is definitely up there. I was trying to think. So basically, if I was thinking about my other people that I'd be potentially putting in like the second, third spot, so I was thinking, well, Steel, Blank. I mean, once was another person. I was like, well, he's had some really pop-off games, but just honestly, like, the consistency was just not good enough. And in fairness, there was a point towards the start of the split where I thought Blank actually threw a lot of mid games.
Yeah, he did.
Sengoku were like in a position where like they'd have a really good position around objective, and then just like some sloppy plays, sometimes from Blank getting caught out before a dragon, would just kind of losing the pressure that they built up so well. That has not been a thing at the end of this split. He has been just so imperious in a lot of ways.
I would definitely agree with that. I mean, if we move over to the mid lane, I think we are all in the same idea that Pyrion was the second best. Oh, no, wait. No, we had an idiot in the middle that says Syros is still good.
Oh, yeah, I put Seros in second. So, okay, this is the point where, like, the defendant will now defend himself.
This is after you slated me for having him in the power rankings.
Yeah, the power rankings is where Initia1ise is totally allowed to put him there. This is way more...
Don't get me wrong. I feel like both Steel and Seros for me have ended the split on a lower note than they started. But like Seros was like the guy to beat in so many of these games, remember? Like remember when CGA first went up against DFM and were like, man, Ardia, this guy is like maybe the best mid in the league. He now has to go up against Seros. He then got like shut down in the laning phase by Steel and Seros, and I get that it wasn't just a 1v1 and stuff like that. And also, I feel like his Cassiopeia in that game also got caught out a couple of times. But I feel like Seros, on the whole, on the champions, which he has been performing well on, stuff like his Syndra, his pocket picks of like the one Heimerdinger game we saw, the Karma as well. This guy does warp drafts, and he is really good at the picks, which he's proficient on, right? He does end up kind of crapping in the draft a little bit for his teams, and we've seen that in a best-of-5 scenario. But of course, the whole split isn't just a best-of-5. In the best-of-1s, he has been a really big impact in a lot of ways. He's not first for me because there is a big mid laner we need to talk about later. But Seros, I feel like over the course of the whole split...
bells. Why? Where is this choir suddenly coming in the background?
I was going to go back to Halo and just...
we were back on that, but no, it was Dory, mate.
I feel like Seros he's been worth his weight in gold throughout the whole split, and he has been consistent on the whole. It's just towards the end of the split where I'm like, how much is he affecting his team in draft? And that's why I couldn't nearly put him in first.
And I know like last time I had some defense.
Initia1ise, no. Don't defend him. He's wrong. It's okay to tell him he's wrong. Just because he's diamond doesn't mean when it comes to this that he has some superiority. He's wrong. He slated Syros for the right reasons, and then is now doing complete backpedal when the correct time to give up this, because power rankings is far more personal opinion. That's when you can go, I like Siros, he's my number one. And I go, I disagree with you, but fuck it, you're allowed to at the end of the day. This? No. Bad. 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 Like, wait, no. Who was your third place mid laner?
Me, Pyrion. So I swear.
You think Siros is better than Pyrion? Pyrion beat Siros in the mid lane. By default, Pyrion has to be number 2. That's where we put him because he has to. No, it doesn't matter. He's now guaranteed number 2, like Apperman. That's my criteria. Numbers.
This is why. Oh god, you know earlier when I was like, oh, well, I'm gonna start like telling Sam to talk about this pick and stuff because I knew he'd go off on fucking tangents like this. I'm like, I've got to start stealing the host studio. That was a mistake. I didn't mean to do that. I am sorry, Ellie. I just got a bit off.
But really, Siros? Really?
Okay. Oh no, I think I was trying to think back to how I was feeling about the teams.
I put Ninja over Siros. Ninja's good as well, like legit.
No, but he's also bad. He is good and bad in the same time.
He still plays Zoe. He still plays Zoe. Still plays LeBlanc.
Okay, no, okay, oh, God, okay, right.
Still can draft.
So
and plays Iggs.
Yeah. If you listen to any of our last playoff episodes, any of our last episodes and stuff, yeah, it does kind of come as a bit of a surprise that I've ordered things this way. But remember, the start of the split was all, yeah, and Galliardo has been such a consistent member as well, and that's why I was like, okay. Galliardo didn't really show up in playoffs a lot of the time. Well, he did okay versus V3, and it's only the one thing. And actually, he probably was the one standout guy from Axis in their series, right? Really,
I mean,
on terms of the numbers. But I feel like Saros, towards the start of the split, he was just so hard to... Yeah, because Ramone had a bit of an awkward split in a lot of ways.
I started Super Ramone over Rocky, actually. I've been very
and I still think that Saros is a good point of pressure in his team, right? I think that...
still scared to give him Heimer a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Unless you're Sengoku.
For me, I've just tried to view the split holistically and try and remember back to certain milestones. I'm like, okay, right, when they were like 4-0, how are we feeling about this team? How are we feeling about certain of these players, right? Remember back in week 1, you were like, Saros, he is like my player of the week.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Like, the way he affects stuff. That's changed, that narrative has changed
very
a
much.
bit, but for me, I'm trying to remember throughout the whole split and kind of go, if I had to take someone from any given point in the split, what's the chance of them being like first team or second team or whatever? And that's why I put Saros as higher than I've slated him at the end of the split. We've talked about second team for quite a while.
I mean, I just want to touch. I do want to touch on the bot lane duo, as I think that is important.
Can I just have a quick combo on Saros, and then we'll move on to Salah? Because I think actually, like, it's like in terms of the thing with drafting, it's like he does have that kind of Doinby vibe where Doinby like plays certain champions that everyone else doesn't, and he doesn't always play the champions that everyone else does. The thing is, the champions he does play, he plays very well, and the team knows how to play around. And it's not like you can ban him out doing it. Like, he has got 5, 6, 7 picks, which he just plays really well, and they can find a way around it. And the thing is, like, even with something like the Syndra priority, it's a priority for DFM because he and Utapon both play it. So I actually think there's, like, it's all well and good saying, like, you know, he doesn't play LeBlanc and Zoe, and, like, yes, he doesn't, and that is a bit of a kind of question mark. But he plays a lot of other stuff as well.
Pretty big question mark.
But I mean, he also plays a lot of other stuff which is allegedly flexible for him, which I think is a strength in its own. And they know how to play around that.
Yeah, Syndra between mid and bot is a pretty big one.
Now that kind of thing. So like, I get why Saros is there. He's not there for me. I had him down about 4th because I did have like his.
He was 5th for me.
I think.
No,
But I could absolutely understand why he goes second. He has been very. I don't like.
No.
Like on
this is why it's so different from my power rankings. It's like start of the split, end of the split. There's something in between, and yeah.
And one indifferent series versus Sengoku Gaming isn't necessarily enough to drop him, and I.
No, it's not. But I mean, also losing 2 games as well in the split. Obviously, that was a surprise. Obviously, Sengoku have now taken 4.
Is ass. His Galio is straight ass.
We saw one game that wasn't good. Yeah, we saw one game that wasn't good. But it's only been the one game.
I mean, I think if they want to do that, right? If Siros just doesn't want to play meta shit, right? Fine, fuck it. Start picking up things like Lucian, like these really aggressive flex picks. Then I'll start to come around to the whole idea of that. But he needs to get a bit more flexibility with top lane. He needs to start playing more of Ebby's picks in the mid lane. We saw one of those with an Ornn, right?
Yeah, he plays Ornn.
So like, I'd like to see more of that, and then I'd like to see more of maybe a swap with with either jungle and or bot lane carries, doing more of this because currently it's hurting them drastically.
Well,
Yeah,
the thing
and
is, we
I
know
think
that
we'll-
Karma's flexible. We know Karma's flexible with Gang. We know Syndra's flexible with Utapon. We know Ornn's flexible. That's 3 already.
That's only 3
And we
though.
still don't- That's still pretty good.
Yeah, but I
Okay,
feel
no,
like if you
then-
want to do that, Doinby, as Nymaera was saying, has like what was it initially?
That's Sam saying. It
That's
was
that-
Sam
yeah,
saying.
what-
Not me this time.
One of you was saying this. Initialized was saying Doinby has 7 picks. We've given 3. Need
But they're
to
not
up-
all flexible for doing BI.
No, but like you have that for Doinby, right? And Doinby's a
But- no,
world
but that's
class
what I'm saying,
winner.
But I'm saying, but Doinby doesn't have to flex all his picks.
He
what I'm
doesn't,
saying.
but I mean, DFM aren't the undisputed winners at the moment now, and they
yeah,
haven't
no,
gone to
no.
Worlds and done everything that Doinby and
No.
FPX did. So
I
till
know
they
we
do
have
that,
So I know we have a topic on DFM later because that's one of the thingies we're going to answer. So like we could
Yeah,
probably
yeah.
shift to this topic there because like there are. I want to keep my powder dry on it because like this is very relevant. They're very
Yes.
relevant issues to DFM. They're still in playoffs. They lost. They have to win another series to get back to the finals. Saros might
did
be
GT.
one of the reasons for it. Yeah, so did GT, right?
I mean,
There are
there's
teams that
a
can
lot
do
of teams that are actually kind of imploding as we go
Yeah.
around the world. It's definitely a interesting time for us to be in. Now, initialize. We've flip-flopped. Begin us with your number 1 team, if you would be so kind to, sir.
Can I?
Sure.
Can we all guess who's in top lane?
Oh, I think we all know who's in. I think we all know who's in jungle and all in mid.
To
I
the
think-
great surprise of absolutely nobody, I suspect we may all in fact have the same first team.
Probably.
My top laner, it is DFM's Ebby. In my jungle, it's Boogie from V3. It's CJ's Arya in the mid lane. It is Sengoku Gaming's Yutori Mayashi in the bot lane carry position, and DFM's Gang at support.
I have exactly the same first team. It is Evie in the top lane, Boogie in the jungle, Arya in the mid lane, and Yutori Mashi and Gang in the bot lane.
Make it 3 for 3 in every single thing. These are our top 5 players of the LJL when we look at it just across everything these players have shown from us. This is a team that honestly is not possible in the LJL.
It's sad. It's not.
We had to check this because we all were kind of assuming we'd all done this. This is a team of 3 Korean players. 2 of them, while they've played in the region for a very long time in Arya and Gang, it's not that 3-year period where the government has given them citizenship or a national or whatever they.
Nationalised citizen or whatever.
Yes. So sadly, and obviously Boogie's brand new this split, and that's actually a statement, right? What a statement to come in and become the best jungler, and it's pretty undisputed best jungler in
Yeah,
a
yeah.
region.
Yeah. No, he's been absolutely outstanding. I mean, all of these 5 players have been
Oh, yeah.
absolutely outstanding. I'm trying to think who even is like closest to the second place, and even
I-
that's not
I think
like.
bot lane is the Yeah.
Be swing.
yeah. I think that's the one. But Yutori Mashi over the last few weeks has been more impressive. I
Oh,
think.
Yeah,
he's been
for-
really,
for
really
now,
good.
yeah, actually now Yutori Mashi, I think he's like on my shortlist for MVP.
He
But-
was really good.
But over the first few weeks, he was good, but
He
not.
was finding it hard to like win games.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas like now he's found the champions he can carry on.
His
he's
team trusts
performing
him as well.
Yeah, his team trusts him. He is performing ridiculously well in lane skirmishes and team fights. There is no aspect of his game which is lacking. And I mean, I was speaking to the other guys, and we're trying to like recount like, has he actually had an out-and-out bad game? He might have had a bad moment, but he actually had like a bad game, and I can't think of a single example this split.
Like, he's had quiet games every now and then. Where
Yeah,
but he's never had one where I've gone, well, that wasn't int.
Yeah. At worst, he goes like 1-2-1, and they lose, and he's just like, "Well, guys, you can't. What? Like Apperman, you went 0-4. What am I meant to do?"
Yeah.
Oh god,
I-
that game versus Cog's cannon.
Yeah, that
Oh,
was.
yeah.
Yeah, but
That
in a,
was so
that's
bad.
that's a perfect way of looking at it. When Sengoku got dumpstered, Yutori Mashi didn't get dumpstered.
Yeah.
He went like, I think he actually went 1-2-1. I actually think I'm pulling that perfectly there, but it's like.
And we
eh.
have And we have seen games where, say, Enti gets caught a bit, which is like why for me
Yes.
Enti wasn't on my list. Whereas I can absolutely understand why he was with you, because
Yeah.
he and Yutori Mashi have ended the split so strong.
I mean, that's why
but,
for
like,
me,
you know-
DFM and Sengoku are basically bot lane duos have just
So-
swapped over, basically.
So Yutori went 0-1-0 in that game. He only died once.
That's really impressive. That's phenomenal, honestly, in a game
That was
going
in the
that
base.
bad.
That was literally in the base. Like, they just couldn't kill him. Okay.
Well, who did he play that game? Was it Aphelios?
He played Ezreal. Like,
Oh, okay, that's why he was also probably able to get out. That's good.
true. Yeah, true.
I mean, why not?
Flash heal, arcane shift is quite a lot of power.
It's a very far distance. Very far distance.
I guess the one thing which, like, we're talking about who's closest to, like, the second place in their role.
Yeah.
The one thing I want to question is, you have NT in second, right? We didn't touch on that when we're going up the second place. Sam and I both had Reyna as our second support. Gang, very comfortably in first from all of us. Should we talk about supports? Is that something worth talking about?
I mean, it's interesting. Obviously, I did not put Reyna in my list. He's not in my top 3. And I'm very happy with always saying Corporal is in my number 3 spot. Because I think whatever happened, he must have been part of the change that happened for that team. You don't get to just bring in three new members and them all somewhat working together with 2 of the existing members and coaching staff and everything else, and not start picking up wins to a consistent amount to make playoffs. That's why I think he's there. It could have probably been any of the other players, honestly, but like I'm very happy with him, the support. I think NT's honestly just been your supports are only half as good as their carries. And then carries are only half as good as their supports.
Yeah,
I am a support main, so I might be biased. But I think NT has been arguably the person that put Yutori Marashi in my first place spot. For me.
Yeah, I think, and I mean,
the
so if you guys want to go back and watch the round 2 series between Sengoku and DFM, look at his game 1 Morgana for game, and then see how many bans or draws after that game, because it is that important. I think that he struggled a lot of the split to find the champions where he could really impact team fight skirmishes and also be strong in lane, and all this kind of other stuff.
Yeah.
He was struggling a little bit towards the early part of the split, but like he's found some really good champions for him as time's gone on, really. So I think his Enchanter supports, his Rakan, his Morgana, all that stuff has been very good.
The less standard supports that have been played for a lot of the split, he's actually been performing far better on, which is interesting because you could argue Yutori Marashi was in that same spot because he wasn't able to fully carry some of the games where maybe he would have been able to, but over the last few weeks he's now just turned it on and just doesn't seem to matter almost.
I mean, the thing is all the champions he's very good at the minute, the Aphelios, the Senna, the MS, the Varus, are all super prioritized right now, which is, well, it's a good look for them.
You know what's terrifying about Yutori for me is that I pick any of those 4 champions, put them against any of the other 4 champions. I think Yutori Miyashi wins those lanes.
Yes.
Like, who else in the league actually does that? Wins pretty much all of those matchups.
I mean, I could I think probably the people I could see contesting, and I would be loath to give it to them, but I could see contesting. I think Art and Vivid could do it, if only because Art is in the vein of someone like Perks when he's in the bot lane, or Wild Turtle, where that flash key is just there to get you closer to combat. You know it's true. Like, yeah. I will flash Onslaught with Severum Crescendo on Aphelios and look for that.
Speaking about Art, he didn't make your list, Lexi. He made mine in second and Sam's in third. What do we think about Art in terms of the grand scheme of all pro stuff?
He needs to be on a team.
That's what I'm interested about.
Yeah, so my problem with him is he very much relies on his support and arguably his team to kind of vaguely play around him, especially in team fights. He will rarely find himself in the position that he needs to be in. It's normally the team sometimes backing them up, in my somewhat opinion. When he pops off, he's arguably the best AD carry in the region in some aspects. Problem is, there's also been aspects where he doesn't get in position, first one to die, and then they end up losing the team fight or losing an objective, and the rest of the team are very smart and back out very quickly, because Radical Jester are the EU team of the LJL. So they're very good at just communicating, going back around. Oh yeah, I'm using your point from earlier. I can bring it back together. I'm always on. I'm always working.
That was all fair. I'm glad you brought that up, actually.
I agree. I sort of see what you're coming from.
I just prefer Archer. I think Archer in certain spots has just been able to play Varus to an absurd level. I mean, I am definitely playing some past game bias.
Archer was in my power rankings for playoffs. He's not in my All Pro, but he would have been 4th, I think.
Yeah, I think Archer's 4th for me as well.
Yeah.
Like, I get it. I
That's where I am
prefer
with
Reina.
him.
Yeah, I think I prefer. For me, I think Reina's the better half of the Archer Reina duo. Whereas for me, I think Art has been the problem with. So I kind of agree, but I also think that for the Jesters when they win, it's normally because Art has basically said, "Stand aside, I will carry," and
see that
Ninja
raises problems for me.
Well, yeah, but that's more my problem with the Jesters in general. Like
Sure.
they have Hachimecha has a read on. So when the Jesters win, it's Hachimecha has a read on the opposing jungler. Means that he gets to do what he wants.
But he just calls everything out, and I'm pretty sure the team just go, all right, Hachimecha said that, let's just do it.
Yeah. Ninja goes for playmaking rather than necessarily like strictly good carrying. It's just like I will make a play.
It reminds me of kind of like, strangely enough, I think Ninja reminds me quite a lot of High in his golden days. Like High, I think
less of the shot calling, but less of the shot calling. But I know what
less
you mean.
of the shot calling role, but like in some aspects where High, back in the golden days of C9, knew that even if he died making a play, his team was in a position to win that team fight. And we saw that against CGA, which they unfortunately lost 2-3, but like Ninja had a really good series, and he did some really important things versus Ardia as well.
So talking about that mid laner and Ardia was our mid laner across basically almost every single week, outside of maybe slight upsets or maybe, but almost was always a conversation outside of a 1 or 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Best player maybe of the whole of the LJL. This is kind of crazy. But then you could argue all these players in our top team, as it would be.
This is the shortlist. This is the shortlist.
Yeah. I don't think there's any other contention, really.
Yeah, because
What do you want to say, Initia1ise?
There is a hit. So the only reason, like, I think Arya is by far the best mid laner. He's got clean mechanics, great CSing, great champion pool. There is the only thing is there is that hint of immature underneath it all, where in those high pressure situations, sometimes, just sometimes, he gets a little bit caught in his own hype and gets caught. And we've seen it a couple times before against it. The Jesters are a great example of that, where they use their kind of experience to pluck him out before team fight sometimes, and then the rest of CJ crumbles.
I think that's a fair point.
Some of that might just be CGA relying on him way too much, and there has definitely been a lot of that before.
Yeah.
But some of that I think is sometimes Arya just like...
I mean, this is a player that has only been playing competitively for about 2 years, really, you can call it. This is also a player that... it does seem to almost be a hindrance unless a player really becomes the face of a team. Only played on one team with different players, but you commonly see a player normally play for a few teams before they start, unless you're Faker, and apparently
that's
just
what I'm saying, like,
the best player by a mile. But the difference is Faker immediately went to Worlds, immediately was performing at a level that was just basically had not been seen.
Season 3 SK. Okay, if we're gonna do a dive onto life.
No. I just want to make that statement because
season 3 SKT was a perfect storm in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it was, but you can't say CGA is a perfect storm.
That's the thing, right? Whereas, like, I think that there are parallels to be drawn in some ways between Faker and Ardia in the way.
But then you could argue that with Bjergsen, with basically players like in certain roles, they're just the best in their region.
No, but for me, it's more about the playstyle and the mentality. Because like I'm hesitant to make comparisons to Faker, and there's only so far the comparison goes. But obviously, it's a really good soundbite to say, Ardia, he's like the LJL Faker in a lot of ways.
I mean, that was Syros.
In some ways, but for me, Syros is more like modern Faker in terms of like he is like the battle master, the guy who like just controls everything with this huge wrinkly brain. Ardia is like hot-blooded season 3 Faker when he's like, I'm going to play disrespectful, I'm going to outplay you. He just sometimes presses the outplay button and sprinkles some magic on there. We've seen that so many times from this split. They did go out in round 2 versus V3, but it went to 5 games, and he did look good in a lot of those games too. Like, the Varus win that he had was absolutely disgusting. And, yeah, there's no way he can't be first team for me, just because of his consistent playmaking and his carry potential throughout the whole split. But every time you do this, like, outplay button, roll the dice, you are rolling the dice, and sometimes it's a natural 1, and you get Blitzcrank ulted and lose a game. Like,
oh, Rascal Jesters are pretty good at this shit.
Yeah, exactly, right? Which is why I really love that series, the Rascal Jester CJ series.
So much fun.
My damned voice, and I would do it again in a heartbeat. So much fun, dude.
Was that the most fun series we've had? so far?
I don't know. I don't know. The last, I guess the Sengoku DFM series was a weird one because the first few games happened. They happened, right? But then we realized where this was going and that we're probably seeing the full 5 set. And that's where it was like, oh shit, DFM could actually lose it.
they could
Oh my
lose,
god, they could
yeah,
actually
no.
lose this. And then obviously we know the outcome and it's like, okay.
It's like, oh, CJ Rascal Duster Game 5. That was when
That
they
was-
finally locked it. When they finally locked in the Zaya Rakan, I just lost my shit, man. I was like, I did it.
My brain, my message has finally got to them.
So,
there are, yeah. Go on.
so the question becomes now, we have all agreed that this is the best team overall, right? If these teams had to play against each other, assuming there's a third team, right? Assume there's a fourth team rather. Assume there's a fourth team. Do we assume it always goes in this sense? Do we think there's any upsets? Do we think these teams just kind of always go random fourth place team, third place, second place, first place? Is there maybe anything else you think? Are there any other players that maybe didn't make your list but you want to make, or any of our lists and you think, oh, actually, I think maybe I misjudged my list maybe a tiny bit or forgot about them?
Well, we haven't actually got like our collated list actually.
Are you in the middle of? Have you been scoring up points totals there a little while?
I have them written down, which is also why I'm trying to direct people back. So I'm not sure if you guys have them in front of you. So I'm like, oh, I can visually start relating things.
I've vaguely been looking at my list and Sam's list. I don't have your list, so that's why I've not been paying too much attention to it.
So I mean, like, considering, I think, like, the thing is, the first All-Pro team is not in question for any of us. They're like, if it's like the first team gets through, if you know all the players in that get 3 points, we've all given every one of those players 3 points. They're all at 9 points, and they're all there for a very good damn reason. That team is really damn good. Ebi, Boogie, Ari, Tormiyashi gang. If you could field that, and you can't, incidentally, because there's 3 Koreans in there. But if you could field that team. So say they moved over to Korea. Maybe they became an LCK team, and this was like LCK round 2. But my point is, if you were playing, I don't know, if you're playing in the LJL with that team some way, somehow, one of those guys gets Japanese citizenship for whatever reason.
I mean, Gang should be coming up for it very soon.
Yeah, potentially.
So...
and I'm not entirely sure on LJL's import rules, so I believe it's still the 2. So
It is. Corp Pro is a Japanese citizen, partly. That's why it doesn't affect them at all for access.
That's helpful. So,
or at least according to his wiki page, it is. So
yeah. And the thing is, you've got like a super aggressive mid jungle 2v2 who will happily impact Ebi and Utorimashi and Gang on the opposite side of the map, who will be significantly more consistent. You can play through any lane. The only thing you have to worry about a little bit is that Boogie and Aria love their outplay button. And if they decide that they're going to go in, versus a team like, say you faced off against something like maybe Blank Empyrean or Steel and Seros, who have got experience and a certain amount of smarts, and you get red, and you get hard red, and Boogie gets shut down, and then Aria, trying to outplay, suddenly realizes he's in a 1v2 permanently and then gets blasted. Maybe you end up in trouble there. But you have also got to outplay Boogie and Aria, which is a fairly hard thing to do.
I mean, this is a team where it would be very interesting, on the assumption that obviously you could have this in the LJL.
Yeah.
What would that mean for every other team? So, I mean, there's no 2 members. Oh no, this would have to be in theory a DFM team, because it's obviously 2 members of DFM and then one of a bunch of other teams. I mean, that's a huge change for DFM.
I mean, I would also say that it is, in fact, 2.5 DFM members. Yutora Mayashi, I believe, is an ex-DFM member as well.
Ooh, I think you're right about that, yes.
He was back then.
I mean, I'll just double check
as well.
That's right.
Yeah, he used to lane with Game.
So I almost count that, it is a little bit of, So yeah, was he Damnation?
No, he wasn't. He was Pentagram.
He was
Rampage Pentagram, which
yes,
we will be covering in depth one day. But yes, he's got experience with Gang. Is the point?
Yeah, but I mean, like that roster was pretty good as well. That was Ramane, Utorimayashi, Gang, Paz, once, good roster.
Yeah, very good roster. So I mean, I think that's...
I've totaled up the things now, by the way.
Okay, cool. Let's go on to that then. Let's go on to that.
Yeah. So between all 3 of us, first team is as we've said.
Well, obviously.
Do you want to go first, second, third, or third, second?
Do third, second.
Okay. So in third, we have Paz, Blank, Saros, Art, Corporal. In
Not a bad team.
second, we have Rayfarki, Steel, Pyrian, Utapon, Reyna.
Good teams.
Not bad
Yeah,
teams.
I mean, so the thing which unbalanced it is that I put Saros in second, which went above both of your third place, and you had Pyrian who made it in second. So Saros kind of tipped it because I put him second. So sorry about that, lads. But I mean,
Wow.
yeah, Saros in
I
third
mean, he was
team,
in
a
second.
little split.
Pyrian was in second for me. Remember, he wasn't in third.
Yeah, he was in second for me.
Yeah.
That's why he
Well,
got
then
pushed to
that's-
second, and that's why he got third.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So yeah, Rayfarki making it in second, didn't make it into playoffs, but throughout the regular season was an absolute monster. That's something to say.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't make playoffs. I mean, I think that's fair. I mean, Burning Core, he was definitely the only player that we consistently were going to and going, come on, Rayfarki, if it's anybody, we're relying on you. If someone else was to wake up today, fucking great. But I'll wait for the man, the myth, the legend.
I mean, I'll give some credit to once in the first 10 minutes. I'll take once in the jungle for one clear through third clear, and that'll be. If it's going well, maybe we'll give something.
You know what's actually really fun about these teams? This third team of Paz, Blank, Saros, Art, Corporal, for me, that's almost a better version of Rascal Jesters in a lot of ways. Because for me, it's like all of those players could roleplay around Art really well. If you ask me.
Yeah, they could.
Saros and Paz, they are really safe, really good team fighting players. Blank, early game stability ends up setting up the map really well, and Corporal is one of our better supports too.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
And I think,
in some ways, I actually think that third team would be more coherent than the second team in a lot of ways for me.
so what is that? What would our second team be again? Do you mind reading that out?
Rayfarki, Steel, Pyrian, Utapon, Reyna.
Oh man, yeah, like
It's a really good team as well.
Steel's. I mean, it is, but Steel would have to be very vocal about where he's playing around, because otherwise certain lanes are gonna go, I'm gonna play up, and Steel's gonna be like, no.
But then we
It's
could.
like Rayfarki is getting dived, but like 3v1 at the top side on
He
Darius.
gets a kill because he's Rayfarki. But,
Yeah.
Rayfarki go, I Darius min, I slash people. Whoa. Granted, I did
Like,
feel like I
you're
played
gonna be on
Rayfarki.
You're gonna be gangplank. You're gonna sit on your damn tower. You're gonna buy 2 infinity edges.
Oh!
30 minutes.
Orange barrel. God, the barrels, they come out, and sometimes they do a lot of damage. I mean, they worked for TSM, so I mean, the barrels
True.
are real. The barrels are real, gentlemen. Now that we
Yes.
have our opinionated top 3 all-pro teams, and now we have quantifiable
collated.
data. Yeah.
oh, the player of the split one.
Yeah, with Syros somehow in any of these. I still don't understand how that's happening. And how is it you, Nymaera? How is it you that did
I
this?
love it.
How?
I'm gonna go.
Why
I'm
is it
gonna
not
get
Initialize? I can kind of give a break. He's the fanboy. I understand that. It'd be like if I put somehow somebody
if I
from
was a
Sengoku.
fanboy.
No, not Sengoku. If I put a Hawks player on,
yeah.
you guys would be like, yeah, sure. That's just
for my
Lexi.
But he also
first place
finished last.
ADC is
I didn't put any of them on. I understand that. I didn't put Honey on. I
108
thought about it
commanders.
for a split
Yeah.
second, then I realised that he had kind of shit the bed after week 3, and I
It's amazing. It's amazing.
gave up on it. But god damn it. So, gentlemen, with that all said, how would these teams do if they were playing in other locations? We started talking about this. Obviously, let's talk about our number 1 team, because that's the team we're going to have the most powerful feelings towards. How would this team do internationally?
so the all pro teams.
Yeah, our all-pro team, our number 1 all-pro team. How would this team do internationally? Would they go the distance? Assuming they could represent the LJL, right? We're doing Magical Christmas Land here.
But quite frankly, I think they have a very good shot at groups with a team like that.
Yeah, I think their laning phase is really strong, and that is a big thing to go off of. You don't want teams which have to rely on laning phase, which is one of my problems. Say if like Sengoku and DFM, I think they will face that. It's the Team Liquid problem, right? But like if you rely on laning phase to make your compositions work, probably not going to work at Worlds. So I think that this team though has really strong laning because you can't have weak lanes either. It's one of the reasons why Axes I think failed in playoffs for me is that they didn't necessarily have the strongest laning phase. So it's going to be a bit of a tug of war amongst a couple of things. Would they win against EU third seed?
Yeah.
Maybe.
I can see, give it a go.
Actually, I can see that. Chinese third seed, or well, they get straight into groups. But like Korean third seed, no, probably not. But would they win against?
Welcome to Dragon
X.
X, Deft versus Utoromayashi. Yeah, Utoromayashi is good. Is he Deft?
He's
Probably
not.
not.
I mean, the thing is, right? We do this whole they're not X though. They're not Y though. They're not Faker. They're not Bjergsen. They're not all these. They're not. Oh, it's not.
Knight, who's about to bring it in third place for the LPL.
Exactly, right?
His 11-1 Syndra at 22 Magi stack in 19 minutes.
We say that our players aren't this, right? And we're commonly comparing them to players that have more international success, that have done far more impressive things on established regions, right? And like the main regions. Is it just our players aren't as good as these players, or is it just they have not had the opportunity?
I think part of it is the competition that they face. I think back. Oh shit. Well done. My mic's fine. I think that.
Give that somebody, because that was amazing.
Yeah. I think that when you talk about like how many months did this split last? Like 1.5, 2 months, something like that. And for once, we've actually had like pretty good competition in the LJL. Is that the same as Def playing in this region and playing in the LPL for like since season 4, season 3, something like that? That's 7 years of harsh competition. It's not, and for me, I think that the LJL has finally reached a point where like the iron is sharpening the iron, and that's why we see DFM having some really losing a playoffs in series and playoffs once, and that's something to be said. Having these players which are used to just like fundamentally just winning on like clockwork. That does for me, but then the other question is, you're saying, oh, this player is not X player. They need a crucible to forge themselves to become that player, and maybe that will be World's Group Stage. Maybe that will be something like that. So I'm kind of waiting for it because I know that these guys have talent. It's just whether they pull that out on the big stage.
Couple counterpoints. So first one is actually a number of these players have been to Worlds before, and have actually also stepped up.
But not as this unit. It's not as this unit though.
But like of the players that have been to Worlds before, Gang has been before with DFM. Utoromayashi has been a couple of times with Pentagram and Rampage.
Yep.
Boogie went with Flash Wolves, pulled some pretty impressive wins off some people. Ebby has been solo killed Vizichachi. Like everyone here but Aria has been to Worlds, and not just been, looked good. Which is a different thing to say, because say like someone like
they've had their moments, yeah.
So like Seros went to Worlds, pulled out his Heimerdinger, got slapped by Jens.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's like I mean he had other games where he did fine, but like we have like there's also
Faria goes to Worlds. Just don't play Akali, okay? Please, just don't.
Fake has been pulling it out and been looking good versus Azir. Just saying.
Okay.
It's been a great Azir counter.
Don't do it.
I could see, Arya just loves his mobile picks, which was why the Varus was quite strange, but then he managed to do well on that.
He did.
So second counterpoint before kind of leave it as well. So the first one is like actually a lot of these players like have shown up in the Crucible before, so I would have some faith in them, and against good players too, like the tops, the last seeds from major. So that's good work. The second thing though would be that actually there is this conversation like. But Nymaera was bringing up about if you are winning basically by mechanically outplaying in laning phase and just winning through that and continuing the snowball, there will be a problem with Worlds because you can't guarantee, like just flat out, people will be just better. This is a group of players that are actually fairly smart about the game, and I think if this was one of those things where you came into even mid and late game. I could see some of these players, so like Ebby and Utoromayashi in particular, would be fairly good win conditions in terms of they can play the map quite well and know how to do it on quite an efficient level.
And all of these guys are team fighters, actually. Every single one of these first team guys are really good team fighters.
So like, I would have some faith if the laning phase hadn't gone well, actually, that these guys could still put up a fight, which I think would be something.
I mean, currently, 4 out of these 5 players still have a chance to make it to MSI.
Yeah.
So that is definitely pushing a lot. Obviously, Ebby and Gang are obviously members of DFM, so they have 2 chances to be able to go to MSI. Though we have seen Ebby and Gang already at these kind of stages and performing fine. Not that like world class is like a weird way to put it. I mean, they're fine. They're not losing, but they're not winning, but they're not losing hard where it looks like they just shouldn't. They shouldn't be even playing. That they should be just a challenger team at most. Like they're playing pretty well. It's just, you know what I mean? It's like, where's the next part? We need to like, for us to be able to know that they're going to do well, we have to feel it, and I don't know if I'm fully getting that feeling from.
I think that the other thing, this will kind of tie into more international. We'll talk about international prospects a lot, I'd imagine, when we haven't got as much content to talk about in terms of regular games and stuff. But also the other thing is that actually for the first time in a long time, we've got multiple playstyles being shown at a high level in the LJL.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
A really high pressure early game into dive objective fights around from V3 from the likes of them. They've been performing very well. They've made themselves through to round 3. Sengoku playing stable lanes into objective team fights. Not so much kind of like the aggressive kind of thing, but more the kind of control from Sengoku. DFM play their own unique style in a lot of ways. They have their own unique drafts, and they kind of
love their 1v1.
Sengoku and DFM try and do the same thing through different draft examples, basically. They try and play around objectives, strong lanes, all that other stuff. And then you've just got like some weird-ass teams like CJ and Rascal Jester, which like find team fights out of their arse using different things as well.
It is time for Blitzcrank Varus for...
Blitzcrank and Phelios is huge as well, because the Gravitum stuff. But I think having that varied experience is really important, because I think that one of the things back in, like, last year or whatever. Oh, no, maybe like 2017 or something like. There were a couple of the Korean teams when they went to Worlds, like when the meta was starting to shift, and it's like, oh, how do they deal against like really aggressive teams? I think it was like 2017 SKT, and it was like, well, have they played against early aggression? It's like, well, they've only really played against one team that does that, and that's a Freaker in that season. It's like, is that enough experience to like really use that experience to transfer it onto the big stage? I think after playing like these big best of 5s and seeing them and scrimming with them, and also the LJL season being quite short in terms of it only being like over a month or 2, that does help these teams and players retain that muscle memory about how do you play against that style of gameplay. So I think that's another good thing. You know, every little helps when it comes to this point.
I mean, there is that problem that obviously we're going to be starting Summer Split before we even get to MSI.
That's going to be really annoying, but yes.
Which is going to affect stuff. Also, patches are going to be very different from what these players are playing their playoffs on. Obviously, over here in the LJL, we're kind of screwed because we're
stuck on 10.5. We're currently on patch 10.7, I believe.
And we'll be 10.8, not so far away.
But that does raise a really interesting point that we were having a brief conversation on the Discord server about, and I almost kind of like a slower meta of evolution and kind of really letting players figure out a meta. But that comes from my background. I enjoy playing card games and strategy games as my meta game kind of thing. So normally you get dropped a patch and then it's like, cool, we'll give you 3 months, figure it out. And then you're just like, cool, all right. And then things evolve, and certain strategies that were really good in the early meta become bad, but then they might become good again. And
it's a bit of both for me.
I think it's interesting.
Because I think that, for instance, Season 5, when it came around to Worlds, like, the meta had been so solved. Ridiculously solved. And then, like, we finally saw some, like, things getting shifted around in summer and all that kind of stuff when, like, Faker won on 18 different champions.
Olaf mid, Master Yi mid.
Master Yi mid, Riven mid, all this random.
Maybe he's just better than everybody else at that point.
I think that Season 5 Summer Faker is the best performance a player has ever had in League of Legends.
It was dumb.
I think that was ridiculous. I've never seen anything at the same level. It was just, But I think that there is a mix, because then you have stuff like last season where it was Corki Azir for like 4 patches, more than that. Like, remember the patches when we only saw Akali and Aurelia? And like, there's something to be said about it getting stale as well. I think that in the context of the LJL, having this time period between, like, you know, this month break being on the same patch going into the finals and stuff like that, where Sengoku are waiting, that only goes to benefit them, because some teams are really just going to hone the way they play. And I think that's happened for Sengoku in this playoffs. I wonder if that has actually ended up affecting DFM negatively, because they do like to be more varied and also other stuff.
Could be more positive for them, though, because they may actually have seen what they need to be fixed.
It could be, but then there's also this caveat of, I'm going to go a little bit on tangent here if you guys don't mind, because
go, man. We're here.
It reminds me of, there were some stories coming out of NA's scrims, right, and about Froggen in particular. And the problem was that when you scrimmed against Froggen when he was at his best, if you ever picked Zoe, you had to ban Lux and Vel'Koz. Who the shit plays that stuff? It's just Froggen, but he has these unique pocket pick counters to counter the meta. And the idea was that you don't have the time to put into learning these counters and learning how to play around them to really make it effective on stage. At this point in the playoffs, Sengoku know that they're only going to play against one of two teams, and if they do have counter picks, like any of Seros's random stuff, we noticed that Sengoku dropped the Heimerdinger ban and stuff like that. Maybe they've actually had enough time to start plowing through these picks and kind of like really figuring out how they work, knowing how to counter them and say, well, actually, we've solved your uniqueness now.
I mean, I think that's a really good point. I mean, these are players who have defined playstyles, and teams even. These are teams that have defined playstyles. We've seen V3 is the Boogie show to a degree. People do, you just say what Boogie does, and that's why we go, well, we'll see what Boogie does every time I think I ask you to, oh, where do you think the lane matchup's going to be? It's like, it's jungle. It's just jungle because you're against V3, and if you don't respect jungle, you just lose the game. We've seen people not respect the jungle, and then they just get flattened, and it's like, and they figured it out. They figured out how to play. Sengoku are the same. Yutori Muashi and Apperman, they play the two opposite ends of the maps, and then everybody else basically plays around those two opposite ends. Normally, try and forget about Apperman and think only about Yutori Muashi. Because if we do that, Apperman becomes a stupid monster that when he's on a Yorick, for fuck's sake, in one game, it can 2v1 because you left him alone for 15 minutes, it felt like.
Yeah, they've just found their formulas. Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe they've just solved it. Maybe they have solved it. And DFM, maybe they've actually. I mean, I've been saying this for a while about DFM. Maybe their formula that worked for 2 seasons has ended.
It's been solved. Maybe it's solved.
It's
That's
done.
What I'm thinking.
And that's not unusual. We've seen teams go for a split where they looked unstoppable, and then it's fallen apart. Think Team Liquid, my boy. Think Liquid.
Yeah.
It hurts because I'm an NA boy. I'm a true NA boy. I'm not really an EU boy. I'm a full NA boy, and I'm like, hey,
this is a guy who's
fuck you,
like
TSM.
British born and bred, but like is in love with the idea of moving to LA.
I
Like,
mean, I want to go
flat out.
back. It was so cool. Oh, I miss LA.
That's the promise. It wasn't cool.
I want to
It's
become a
actually cool.
vampire in LA. God damn it. I'm
He
getting...
should never have shown you that list. And, like, that's all he's been doing is watching LA by night.
Vampire the
Great.
Masquerade. That's all you're doing.
So good.
Why not?
It's
It's
so
so good.
good.
Jason Carl is the
I love that Talis
storyteller.
Jaffe just randomly drops in and out of
Oh,
that
yeah.
series.
Matt Marisha does as well.
Oh, it's
Marisha Ray.
so good.
It's Eric Ishii, B. Dave Watts.
We're
It's a
getting
great cast.
way off that topic. No. I actually had a topic that I wanted to ask you, which kind of
Go.
relates to this that
How?
that Nymaera and had brought up earlier with players and also best players, and not wanting to compare Alia to Faker. I've got a list of some of the best players that have ever graced this game. I want to just throw some names at you, and then I want to ask you, do these 5 names, are they potentially going to be able to one day, or maybe any player of the LJL, do you think they're ever going to potentially be able to be in this lineup? So we've got Faker, Bjergsen, Uzi, Perks, Doinby, Huni, Reckless, The Shy, Zvev, XPeke, Soaz, potentially? I mean, you go Diamond Prox, we could go Clear Love, you could say Sneaky, you could say Svens Garen, you could say Piglet, you could even say Wild Turtle, you could say Marraine, you could say Broxer, for God's sake. You could.
So basically, so is the question: will any of
Even
these LJL
Meteos
players make it into that list?
Do you think like that is a name of like you've got some old ones from like XPeke, you've got some new ones, and you've got long time like arguably the best AD carry that's ever graced this game of Uzi, like. We've got a wide range of maybe the best players that have ever graced this game. Maybe so as an XPeke for and you could even say like in bubbles, best players potentially in their role or moments of the game where it's never going to be seen again. Like, will any LJL player or will any of them hit this kind of stratosphere? I mean, it's crazy to think Bjergsen, right? Never won Worlds, but classed as world class. Do we think?
2 ways that happens.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
1, LGL does well at Worlds with the team. And one of those players really pops off. So if Ebby goes to Worlds, slaps people, gets to groups, and pulls a bit of an Albus Nox Luna, potentially. The other way is that one of these LJL players has to move to a major region and not just move there, but look really good doing it. I think if it's just isolated to the LJL, they will never get that attention. The other thing is there will always be that question about, well, yeah, is it just because they're in the LJL?
Yes, no, I agree.
And basically, you've got to be able to stack up against world-class talent to prove you're a world-class talent. And if all you're playing against is good talent, then you'll never get to prove you're world-class.
Yeah.
I mean, so like, why is TPA a great team? Because they ran through Worlds. Otherwise, people have written them off, right?
Yeah. And in a lot of ways, right, a lot of
Toys.
people already start. And one of the other things that, like, it has to be one of those memorable stories, right? I mean, arguably, even though it was, you know, one of the largest upsets in league history, and there are a whole load on that list. Like, you ask a lot of the new players who TPA and the players who were on that roster, they probably wouldn't be able to name all of them. Like, I can name, like,
I can only name Toys, to be honest.
There's Toys, and was it Bebe as well?
Are we talking of this from? We're talking from
Season 2 World Champions TPA.
I believe Messiah was on that roster, wasn't he?
Season 2 TPA. This is. But I own all the skins.
Maybe
like I was a huge fan of like TPA.
But basically, like it doesn't necessarily matter in this kind of microcosm, right? But like the whole idea is that you need to have a legendary performance. Really,
you do,
and that doesn't necessarily come from consistency unless you're in the major region. You're like someone like Bjergsen, who's like always been at that kind of cusp. Someone like Faker who's always been on that kind of level, right? And even then, that's kind of like a whole string of legendary performances. If you ask me if you had the potential to join that kind of stuff, it has to be someone who has the pop-off kind of performance. Does Boogie count because he is Flash Wolves? But if he did it from an LMS team, it might be something. What about someone like Arya? Arya, what if he just like popped off? You know, he's a Korean import as well. It's worth noting. He's not a Japanese homegrown. But
but does that give? So okay, I think Arya and Boogie are interesting points. So Yutorimashi and Ebi are long time, and
I think it's
frankly, I think Ebi and Yutorimashi are probably going to finish their careers probably in the LJL, because unless they get offered crazy money, there's little reason for them to kind of, because how much longer is their career going to go on for? Is a question mark.
And they don't have so the thing is that a lot of people end their careers in Korea because of national service. You don't have that in Japan.
No.
So that's
or in NA or EU, obviously.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So here was the roster, by the way, for season 2.
Okay.
It was Toys in mid lane. It was Bebe. It was Stanley, I believe, as support. He was with his Shen skin. It was Dr. Mundo for Lil Balls. And Mistake got the Nunu skin.
Little Balls, that's it. I mean, I own all those skins. I remember buying it. I remember watching it live. It was
that was before my time.
Crazy time. I was around. If you wanted some context for Magic the Gathering players, Dark Ascension was around that kind of time. If you're interested.
Wow.
Innistrad had just released. Yeah, we're going very far back. Arguably one of the best sets. Again, vampires. Weird that topic's coming up again.
Ravnica, man.
Weird.
Yeah, we started with Ravnica and MTG.
Yeah. Wait, original Ravnica or the return to Ravnica?
Original Ravnica.
I was returned because I was Dimir.
Oh no, yeah, technically that. I was Rakdos and Izzet.
See, I just played whatever was good.
Blue-black, Mildex.
Because I'm a little bitch boy.
See, we didn't know anything about like meta and stuff. Our uncle just introduced us. Like, go do some nerd stuff.
I was
Here's
playing.
a D10 if you want to play D&D.
I was playing 3-color reanimate that just turned into playing Thragtos control with Restoration Angel and Angel of Serenity, which would mean you just have. Oh yeah, you just play Thragtusk about 10 times in a game, and you're just like, well, I'll eventually win it, and I have 50 fucking health. Like, figure me out. Like, I do the same thing.
Mildeck, hope for the best.
I played. Well, the thing is though, that was okay.
That's fine. I reanimate my stuff. Thank you. You accelerated my clock. Thank you.
I just played Rakdos full aggro, just like Dread Slag, loses 4/4 for each card in your hand.
But I gain 5 every single turn.
Yeah. No, there's
Thragtusk was a broken magic card.
Way off.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, Toys and Bebe stuck around were very good. I believe Mistake was around for a little bit as well.
So, Boogie and Gang. Boogie, I guess Gang to a point, but I'm less. I mean, I don't know what Gang's outlook is, but obviously our picks would be Boogie and Arya to go international.
In terms of star power.
Yeah.
In terms of like the big pop-off.
But then Gang's been a 2-time Worlds player and MSI.
He has been, and you know, like so the game which really sticks out for me was the second game versus Rascal Jesters, where like Gang had a bit of a quiet game. 2v2 wasn't really much happening. And then you just had like one Rakan flank. It's like a 4-man ultimate, which just won the the game. And he can just do that, right? He kind of reminds me a little bit of the core JJ in that regard.
Interesting. Yeah, I kind of see that.
But core JJ is kind of like a step above in a lot of ways, right? And again, maybe not this split because they've missed out on playoffs and stuff, but like Gang occasionally does these random team fight skirmish plays which just like get you ridiculous advantages. That's why he's on our first team. That's why he's on our first team. You know, if I was gonna liken him to one player, it probably would be core JJ, I think, in terms of like the notable names. If you're gonna, yeah, because like there might be another player which is more similar to him, but people wouldn't know them. Yeah, Yotori I think he's very consistent, but the question is like how much would he have to do to really make it into that legendary performance?
I mean, which region would probably suit these players best? Because it has to be a major region. Has to be a major region. I mean, we've seen some of lower level players have some success in the larger regions. I mean, obviously, I think the big one that's in a lot of people's minds is Ryoma for 100 Thieves, who
played very well yesterday too.
Who's playing very well. I mean, I do commiserations to 100T fans, but my boys reign supreme. So I mean, gotta
just about.
No, it was convincing. It was a 3-0 stomp. I don't know what you're talking about. TSM. What was it? Operation. What was the operation? What was it? Stealth complete or something? Oh, I can't remember. I need to look at their Twitter.
Heist complete.
Heist complete. Yes. We stole from them. They're the thieves. No, us.
So basically, of these first team players or any of the players, which region would suit them the best? I mean, so basically, when we were off air, I did kind of pose the question: if we took each of our LJL teams, which region would you slot them into? What would be their best fit? So I guess that kind of fits into these players too. I don't know whether it's just the way. The question is whether it's the way they play. Is it a product of the team they're in, or is it their playstyle themselves? For instance, I think if you took Yotori and Gang, I think they're quite a Korean style team. Kind of duo lane. They're very much about team fighting. Their 2v2 is solid. They definitely play a lot of the strong 2v2 lanes. They don't tend to go that off meta, but I think
Boogie's an LPL.
LPL VCS.
The thing is,
major region. So
with the way this team plays as a whole, I think they're probably quite EU at the moment.
Yeah, strong
and
mid,
they're quite
mid jungle.
Yeah, quite versatile. Strong top laner who's good at teleporting, solid bot lane that kind of plays a variety of stuff with the propensity to pull out some weird crap. Like this team could definitely go like, and now we play Senazillion with like, I don't know, Silas jungle with, I don't know, Ornn mid, and we just run at you down bot lane. Have fun.
Yeah. I mean, is it time for Arya to go back to Korea and start trying to find a team there?
Oh, there are a lot of good mid laners in Korea.
That's the thing, but like that's kind of the level that you've got to be thinking about, because like these teams will probably look at these 5 players specifically, right? Not through our content, well, maybe through our content, but also just in general through these are the 5 best players, and it's kind of fucking obvious in a way.
Yeah. Arya could get onto a challenger team in Korea, no problem, I don't think. If he wanted to go straight,
played for one.
If you wanted, yeah, I mean, if he wanted to go to the big boys, he would need to try out for someone like maybe APK or Griffin if they're trying to rebuild. You've also got to remember that actually next year might be a big chance for him if you want to do that, because of course LCK will be becoming franchised. And a lot of new money, a lot of new rosters, a lot of new everything, along with an academy system that will be coming in. Like, Arya potentially might be, if he wants to think about going back to Korea, having kind of proved himself over here and looked pretty good doing it, whether or not he's won or not, he's looked good, the best part of his team.
I mean, it's the 4 major, it's the 4 regions, right? So it's just LCS, LEC, LCK, and the LPL. They're the 4 regions.
It used to be the LMS as well, but then obviously they disbanded.
Yes.
Well, they're kind of now part of the greater.
Which is why actually, I mean, VCS have really been the region to send a lot of stuff, so maybe they kind of take over that role. But there is an opening,
There is an opening. I mean, obviously we would love it to be the LJL.
That'd be great. Man.
But I mean, I think talks are at the moment that it's either going to be the Brazilian league. Or it's going to be the Russian league, but then I think the Russian league needs to sort out a lot of their other problems. There's been a lot of problems over in the LCL.
There's been a few scandals
over the last few years, so I think it probably will hold that one back a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised.
Again, I want to save judgment when I don't know like masses and masses about it. But
No,
some
but
of
it's
the
when you keep
comments
hearing
about
things, you're just like,
I know. Some of the things that I know, like obviously Liquid was a bit angry having been kicked out, but some of the things he was spreading were like, okay, if even 10% this is true, turning the stuff around Vape Victors, the stuff around win trading, like there's loads and loads of stuff, and like there's been some things leveled at
I think the
casters as well.
LLA
like,
is another region that obviously the Latin
Latin
America, because that's got shitloads of money going in, and a lot of the teams have subs, which is normally a good way forward. Looking if you're looking at regions, you're like, if they have subs already, teams have money. The region has money going into it, which normally is a way that Riot can look at it and go, well, franchise it, because there's already money. It's almost crazy to me that the LCK is just becoming franchised, but I do know that Kesper was had a large partnership with Riot, and potentially were like, if we're doing this, we want to make sure we're getting money, which is fair, frankly, in a business relationship.
It also means that like the base level salaries of a lot of the LCK players will be being tripled by 3 times. So like the lower paid LCK members were not getting paid.
Well, and that's why the Korean Exodus happened so harshly, right?
It did. I mean, it was. There was cause
a lot
for
of
it.
money.
That's why Huni hasn't played in Korea for how many years now?
I mean, the thing is that, like, you take a couple
Exactly.
of
I don't blame the guy.
LJL, because remember, like, the NA Academy Academy League has got different rules on their imports. You can have, like, a minor region import as well, effectively, which is why so many OCE players have ended up over there. I could see LJL players ending up in NA Challenger. But then there's stuff about cultural stuff and, like, learning the language and all these stuff. But, like, if you just take the level of play that they are, all of these first-team guys could make it really far in NA Challenger. Like, absolutely. These guys
could,
are...
Like, that team as a whole in NA Challenger could...
Crush it, yeah.
Crush it. I mean, like, the C9s... You look at the C9 squad, you know, like, they're like, when we look at the NA Challenger squads, you've got 2 that are really good. Well, they were really good. You've got the C9 squad, which has got King in their AD carry position, who is, like, an ex-champion from OCE.
He should be in the main roster. He should be in the...
Probably, but he's an import slot.
Yeah, I know. It's awkward.
And then second one is like you also had the Dig squad that at its best was really good and has kind of fallen apart towards the end of it. But that was like that's like some of the oldest veterans of
Phoenix,
like,
Lolo and that lot, right?
Yeah, Phoenix, Lolo, that kind of lot. Yeah.
And I'm not really sure what happened to cause them to have a slight implosion towards
did not
the end.
Follow up on Challenger really.
It's normally the sort of thing, because when you watch the stream, they normally either have it before or after the games. It's the kind of thing where I've just had it on, and I'm just like, I thought they were doing rather well. Oh, all right, fine. I'll just shrug my shoulders and go, all right.
A couple teams made them bleed a bit, and they haven't really stabilized since. Just something what happens sometimes.
You know what's quite interesting as well? As we've been recording this, it's Shiki, one of the guys in our community and does a load of articles and stuff, just published an article literally titled, "Could our best player from Japan play in major regions?" And he's talking about Ebi and stuff.
Without knowing that, I think the problem that... assuming language is not a problem, right? And cultural differences.
Is such a huge thing.
Yeah, it's right. Like, that's why there's... Even you hear crazy salaries happening on... sometimes relatively unknown or unproven, I think is more the better term, on some Korean players, because they're just gods in solo queue, or they've had a very good Kesper Cup performance, and then they're just like, all right, we're just going to give you several 100K, come to us. It's crazy not to take that offer, obviously. Come in, and then they're just kind of, I don't know how good Ebi translates into other teams.
So so what I will say is I think this is a conversation that's been being had more recently on a couple other podcasts that I can't remember quite so well. But like the thing is, in-game communication is not going to be that much of an issue. You can get what you need to say across relatively simply with English. Like you can learn the things like like Impact's famous top die, for example. Like it's not hard to say, or like you just learn the name of the champion. Like that's not hard.
Oh yeah.
Like and you can say what you need to be effectively communicating is not that much English. The issue is more around how are they fitting in outside of the game? How isolated are they? That's more of an issue which can be harder to deal with, especially if the culture is vastly different to your own. So America to Japan is quite different in a lot of
I mean Europe as well in that regard.
Like Europe is a little
I think Europe's... Well, there's actually...
It's different, but it is a little better in actually...
I think
America
is
so much... No. Like this is I've been having this conversation before with some of my Japanese friends about it.
Yeah.
So the issue is more around specifically.
I have to ask, whereabouts are they? Because obviously, if they're playing in NA, they're playing in only in LA, which is a very multicultural environment for them.
And that does change. But it's specifically around
Does
the
help
culture.
if they're Korean though.
Yeah, but it's yeah,
Significantly.
exactly. So like the issue, so Japan is largely quite reserved, largely, and so the kind of the general American culture of being quite forward and quite friendly and very talkative, and how you deal with, particularly how you deal with conflict, is so different. So different. Like effectively in Japan, you say nothing to anybody's face for like the first 3 times, and you talk to the manager behind, but like privately, and then the manager goes to the other person, and they have the conversation for you.
Yeah.
And like, whereas America, you go yell at someone in person, and you kind of, and that's just not how it's done in Japan.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true.
And so like so things like conflict resolution, politeness,
But remember,
language can be really different.
Remember, particularly in the league scene, though, one of the things which is a continuing narrative between NA and EU is that when EU pros go to NA and stuff, people say, "Oh, they are toxic. They're very, they bring up things very face value." A lot of the
EU players, right?
The EU players, yeah.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Good.
And EU solo queue being, a toxic shithole and all that other stuff. And then looking at like,
big time.
one of the reasons why this Immortals roster formed and stuff was like, well, wanted to make sure there was some cultural stuff in terms of like having various French people who just know that if they've got a problem, they're just going to say it to you. And a lot of the EU players which end up in NA are just like like they're not dealing well with conflicts, and I think that potentially that is it's a problem for both regions, but maybe they deal with it slightly differently.
I'd have to assume that Boogie and Arya are going to have the best. If they went to NA, for instance, I think those two would have the best opportunity and chance. Because frankly, I think one, there is a better Korean community over in NA. There is there is not that for a Japanese player, and I think that is why if you have someone going across, it needs to be someone like Ebi or Yutorimashi who. One,
very well known and do what they do well.
Exactly. One, they're respected. Two, they also have communities like social media communities, right? Which I think is incredibly important for a player who is going abroad to at least be able to kind of grab something of back home. And both of them have great streams. They stream actively. Yutorimashi and Ebi both release YouTube content on a regular basis. They're very active on Twitter. They already engage, right, with communities. So I think if someone has to go, these two are probably the best for it because, I mean, they seem like people that want to have fun, and they give across personalities are very uplifting. Now, obviously, even the happiest people are the saddest people sometimes. Sadly, that is the case. But I mean, why not? Yutorimashi wants to become like, he's a big dude. He's got good muscles. Like that man lives for days. Like you're not gonna mess with that man.
Like the other thing for someone like Yutorimashi or Ebi, they've also been playing for a long time.
Yes,
like,
tenure.
That whole deal is really big, and also because like Ebi is quite a stream personality, all that kind of thing as well. There is an element of like, if they did go to another country in order to pull off doing what they're doing, there is that kind of level of professionalism. And having worked through a number of other teams, which I think does help. I would also say, particularly for someone like Ebi, unlike somewhere like particularly like jungle, where synergy is like ridiculously important as a jungler in a professional environment, I suspect someone like maybe Ebi in a top lane, like synergy is important with your jungler, particularly in that 2v2, and TPing is kind of important. But there is that kind of meme that top lane is as an island, or playing that role. There is that room where like maybe that ability to play your style wouldn't be as impacted as it would if say. So that's why I'm quite impressed with someone like Boogie coming across and doing so well, actually, is that there is that element of you need your team to work with you if you want a really hard carry.
So is it someone like C9 is going to be the team that may...
very good at integrating players if they do.
They are fantastic at it.
It's like, would C9 be the kind of team that would be like, all right, we'll pick you up for our challenger team, as we just made another team get into challenger spot. So I mean, they've got now another team to put into the challenger spot, because this C9 team is looking like they're probably going to have another team in the main region, which is kind of crazy to see.
You can't promote relegate.
No, but they can basically they can own. They can't own, but they can own.
I didn't know that.
So. Jack can't explicitly own the team, but he can be a stakeholder of the team.
Right. Okay.
So that's how it will work. He will basically be like, I am going to give this person their spot back or whatever, but I'm a stakeholder because we're selling it to you, so we want to get something out of this arrangement, and our players are not going to be playing for us anymore. So there's business stuff that will happen there. But then he's going to be like, well, might as well work on the next one, and then maybe someone like Ebby comes into that, and that'd be cool, I think.
Yeah, I think Ebby would be the guy I'd send abroad. I think
Yeah,
international top laners have done better than
Outside of Boogie and Arya, who are already playing abroad, obviously.
Yeah.
True. Yeah.
Okay.
And again, with the Korean Challenger changes next year as well, there is room for those guys potentially to find a space in that franchise.
But then our region becomes weaker, right? If we lose these players.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we're a really
Please don't go.
We're
Stay.
in a really strong spot right now. Please stay.
So it's like, what do we want though? We want an LGL player to be like, oh man, they really made their mark in the LGL, were able to go international, play with some other talent, and then they became world class, right? Then does LGL become a breeding ground for them, the next best players, or then do we have to hold on to our players and hope that we can do a TPA?
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like a good time to try and be a TPA, by the way.
No, I think China is just way too strong for that. Like, you're not going to beat a lot of these mechanically just monstrous teams. Like,
Yeah.
I'm looking through these podcast questions, and this one guy called Nymaera.
He put a very interesting question.
Yeah, it looks like a really familiar profile. Who's your favorite co-host? I think he like.
I mean,
I get the impression he made me fishing for compliments a little bit there.
Well, we'll get into that question. I put that question as number 3, even though it was our third question asked.
So I just flicked across to have a look over. I was like, who is this? Who is this guy? Like, oh.
So before we get into questions, as clearly my co-host is eager to do so.
Sorry, I just saw that question. I couldn't help.
I think we've exhausted this topic as much as we can. Our all pro teams, players in it. We also totally went on a topic we didn't even really talk too much about. Well, we kind of did, but kind of didn't. Obviously, there is no meta talk for this week.
Yeah.
So before we go on to questions, I do want to touch very quickly on the game that basically is destroying Twitch numbers and kind of it's very interesting, and I want to talk to you both about it from a caster point of view, and 2 also your thoughts on the game. So this is Riot Games' brand new endeavor. They've released a card game, they released an auto chess, and now they have released a full independent game of League of Legends that is called Valorant. I'm
completely no IP.
It's a brand new IP destroying Twitch numbers. Well, not destroy, kind of, because it's interesting because it's not been this boom, like huge amount of numbers and then huge sink off. It's been consistent for the last few days, which has been good. First person shooter hybrid of Overwatch and CS:GO is what most people are saying, which is fair. I think that's a fair analysis.
We can talk about that.
Bit of Siege. I want to get into it because of casting. Frankly, I'm not particularly interested in trying to go pro in a FPS game. I've tried doing it once. It's a lot of work. I'm not interested in doing that, frankly. What about you guys?
Anyway, it's called Valorant because you didn't actually say that.
I did say the name of the game.
Oh, okay. I completely missed that.
You zoned.
Lexi, what are we gonna do with him?
We'll just try and let him figure out the air.
What do I think about casting and stuff? Yeah, because like I haven't played an FPS like on. I was more of a console FPS guy, so that's already kind of putting me in shit too. Like I played a lot of Halo Reach. That was
COD's played almost solely competitively on console, so I wouldn't worry too much.
There's some stuff about that, but actually playing it with controller instead of keyboard mouse, when you're coming into like tactical shooters as opposed to more arcadey kind of shooters, does kind of, particularly when you've got the
COD arcadey, that'll be interesting.
In some ways, it is though, right? Instead of like having like in terms of like the run and gun as compared to like it is more of a tactical thing. I think that Valorant has done a lot of things very well for its competitive standpoint.
I agree.
I think
the tick on the servers, the tick rate on the servers is
having universal like 124 tick rate servers is huge. Means that a lot of people are going to have that kind of like pseudo real competitive experience from ladder as opposed to things in CS:GO when you have a lot of 60 tick rate things, which really piss a lot of people off.
Yep.
I think that having abilities, so the abilities they put into the game, because each of the characters have abilities which like either do damage or some kind of utility. A lot of them are delayed to the point where you can't use them in place of a gun, which means that gunplay is still king in the games. But like CS:GO, it is intuitive enough compared to something like Overwatch, where a lot of the abilities you need to know what they do and a lot of the facets about them to kind of like watch and spectate effectively. I think that it's got the best of both worlds from the off. I think it's in a good position to go competitive.
I think to add on to that as well, I think there is that kind of generalization that it's a combination of Overwatch and CS:GO. I think in terms of play style, I think it's probably heavier towards CS:GO, and it is very much around similar mechanics in terms of you can shoot through walls, you're playing with your vision denial, with your smoke equivalents, with your abilities, that kind of thing, to control areas. You are looking to put spikes down in particular bomb sites. You're playing with aim duels around corners and peeking away. The Overwatch is significantly more, you're kind of bouncing around, trying to watch out for someone's ultimate coming up.
The mobility is pretty huge.
It's different in that. So it does lean more towards CS:GO in terms of the gunplay and how you play the map, I guess. But in terms of like the aesthetic, it's heavier towards Overwatch. It's a lot sort of like they haven't gone super heavy on it, like it's kind of got that kind of half cartoon edge. It's not super detailed, which I think is nice for clarity.
Clarity is huge.
It's League-esque in that sense.
Yeah, it is, absolutely. And I think the clarity is a big deal, particularly when it comes to people's abilities. And abilities being very noisy can be very difficult to read. Like we've all been in those league team fights where someone has got the cannon barrage, there's a bullet time as well, someone has thrown in like an Aphelios Infernum, and there's like 3 other big ticket ultimates going on in the background while Fiddlesticks is ulting and someone's got an Evelyn Scream from like the last Caress or whatever. Like all of these things are like, what's going on? That's less of an issue with the way they've dealt with certain elements of the clarity with the ability stuff. It's fairly color coded. It's fairly delineated where things end and where things stop.
And also,
which I think is quite.
Also, that you have to buy abilities as well. So you actually have like a budget to use. It's not like Free Fire, Overwatch.
It's just again in that CSS state. It's not just on a cooldown.
In terms of casting it and stuff, like, is there any kind of like particular aspect you think makes it easier or harder to cast, Lexi? Because I haven't really thought about that too much.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm actively, I want to get the game to learn it from a mechanics and how everything works, because I'm more interested in just watching the best players do what they do and just trying to learn how the game works at the highest level. Because I think if Riot are actively wanting to push this as the next big rival to arguably CS:GO, Overwatch, and Siege, which have very much kept the crowns. I mean, Siege especially has very much come up and said, actually, arguably, it goes CS then Siege. Because
Overwatch kind of fell on its own sword a little bit in the last year. So
especially with Overwatch. Honestly, the Overwatch 2 announcement, at the beginning, I was like, this is good. And now I'm like, actually, I think you guys are shooting yourself in the foot way harder.
I have a lot of issues on the Overwatch 2 thing, because the whole thing about Overwatch 1 was like, oh, we don't need single player, all this other stuff. And then it's like, wait, isn't this just glorified DLC?
Yeah, it's a big question. Yeah, I actually think this is going to be the game that, frankly, I'm going to put far too much of my time into learning, not to actually get good at. I think this is exciting for me because if it's been a card game that's come out, like Runeterra, I was like, okay, I'm just going to learn this game so I can cast it, right? I did not plan on learning it to get good at it. I learned it to get casted, but the problem is I had a lot of background knowledge, right?
Sure.
I can just pull from my knowledge of Magic and Hearthstone and and Yu-Gi-Oh! And all the other games I've played and just kind of go, I can probably figure this out as I go along. I have no prior knowledge of CS:GO, really, outside of watching the older Major. And again, with Overwatch, I've watched a bit of it. I do vaguely watch Spitfire games, as they are my team, London Spitfire. Obviously, home team, and also I like C9, so I mean... And I like Jack, so I mean, I'm kind of
they're good,
done into that way. So yeah, and they're a cool org. So I mean, I think that's it. I don't know, but I have no idea. So I'm excited to just kind of see how this evolves, frankly.
So, as a kind of caveat, there's been quite an interesting discussion about like a lot of casters or wannabe casters going, excellent new game, let's get in cast it. The issue is that there are a lot of very very high-profile
Oh,
casters
God,
that
yeah.
have been very excited about moving in, and you can guarantee who Riot will want to give like their
God, yeah.
league the prestige. So people, I think people like Semler have been talking about moving.
Anders and
Like,
Semler,
Yeah, like that's a big. Those are some big ticket casters. I mean,
I know
Overwatch.
that Doa's been making some whispers as well. I think.
Yeah, he's
Doa's
like,
I mean, there are a lot of people who have spoken about the
I mean,
game.
Doa
That doesn't mean
has been
anything about
casted
their
for this
interest.
sort of stuff. Yeah, it's like but there's like I know like Monty was talking about like I know a lot of people who are casters who've told me they are thinking about moving.
it's interesting. Monty doesn't seem to be giving the impression he's going hard into
No,
CS.
Monty's not going to do it. But he's saying he knows a lot of people who are.
Well,
or
Flashpoint's
who are
doing well
considering.
for him, so.
Yeah, Flashpoint doing well.
Oh, yeah, well,
but
bigger than
that's-
probably Valorant will be for the first year in my eyes.
For a little bit. Well,
Honestly, CS:GO's numbers are just insane. They're
They're
beating
very
league
impressive.
numbers in senses. Like in
They
certain
made
tournaments they beat
They
league,
made
which
some
is
change.
crazy,
yeah,
right?
CS is a wonderfully sport.
Oh yeah, it is. So
And that's why I think drawing on that, a lot of the things which make CS successful will go well for Valorant,
Yeah.
right? And one of the other big things to me is that, so in some ways it's good for broadcast talent, in some ways it's bad.
So
I think that Valorant has this grace period where like they can lean on the money which League will inevitably make them. So you can lean on the Riot
yeah.
franchise and say like, okay, you have a while to get this right, and you can reinvent yourselves in terms of a broadcast, in terms of a tournament, in terms of a game, really, to make sure that things work. I think you can do that to a certain extent.
to an extent, within bounds.
yeah,
Within bounds. But what that means is that we don't necessarily know what we're seeing now in terms of
How much of
obvious
this
it would
beta
be-
test is going to actually
how
translate
much
to
of
what we'll
this-
see
yeah,
in a year's
sure.
time?
And I know that Overwatch had tournaments which were cast in the beta and stuff like that, but how much is this actually going to change from a broadcast perspective? Because you've got a lot of people jumping over, and it's like, how much is this going to stay the same?
I mean,
Well-
from my understanding, there's no dedicated or there's not the same tools that Overwatch has from an observer point of view.
Not yet, no.
There aren't
And
the same problems that Overwatch Observer has in terms of like 3D hypermobility.
yeah, that helps. I mean, like the second thing is like to finish up is like yes, a lot of casts are thinking about moving, but they're fairly high-profile names, which means that Valorant actually from the get-go is likely to be quite saturated. So honestly, like the word to the wise is from a few casters actually, if you are a new caster,
Stay where you're at.
wait for the holes to open up in these older games because they're going to need to be filled.
I mean, I'm getting
Um,
hard. I mean, we just saw the brand new Hearthstone set just drop, and oh my god, Demon Hunter is free real estate. Oh my god. Also, Warlock's broken at the moment because you can just play your whole hand on turn one. By the way, on the coin.
Is that the Demon Hunter which gets you 4?
No. Warlock. Just Warlock. You play
Alright.
Warlock. Turn one, you can play your whole hand with the coin.
Nice.
You get to play a 2-drop, which says all your demons cost 1 less, and then you just
Yeah,
throw
that's
out
the
all your
thing. Yeah,
1-drop,
that's
and
the
then you just go. "Ah, this game's easy. You
Yeah, I
always
see
win
what
on
you're
turn
saying
4,
about it.
basically. I can't wait for Hearthstone. Doa also casting Hearthstone is super exciting for me because then I can pull from a different school of casting for card games because I'm so much in on Magic casters because that's what the premiere for card game casting has been. I'm just like, ooh, Doa. Ooh, this is very different now.
I'm still a bit iffy on Hearthstone because of, scandal stuff.
I can't deny that, but like, I mean, I'm excited because Doa's doing it, not because.
Yeah, sure, yeah. And also get the hustle, man. Get the hustle.
Oh fuck yeah!
Something about that.
I mean,
And I think any other thoughts on Valorant, guys?
I think overall it's on a good foot. I think there are some problems with the map aesthetic. I think the color palette's a little bit annoying for me. It just looks a bit bland. It's not necessarily the most character.
I mean, there's going to be more maps, I assume.
Exactly, yeah,
There's
I
going to
think
be more characters. I mean, apparently one of the new characters they released a few days ago is horrendously broken.
Is that Raze the Demolitionist? Yeah.
Yeah, she can just throw grenades that just one-shot people, which is
Yes.
does sound.
Well,
I imagine if I
there's
played
a
it,
lot-
I would be raging at it.
A lot of the complaints about that are coming from people who come from the traditional FPS background of
Oh,
CS:GO.
Summit.
Like
Leading the
Yes,
charge on
who-
her.
who is like, oh man, delete this. Why put a Rocketeer in the game? That's stupid in FPS. It's like, well, this is kind of based on, the abilities are meant to have some kind of impact, and I think that a lot of the, I
And
mean, we also
rocket
saw
launchers
that-
have been in competitive
Quake.
games. Yeah, Quake.
TF2,
Yes.
frankly.
No.
Soldier. Soldier is one of the best classes in TF2.
And actually,
And-
that's another good comparison for Valorant
and-
is
and-
TF2.
And another thing is that obviously the devs
much
beat
so.
the fucking ex-pros of CS:GO in their own game. It's like, well, okay, maybe the devs like know more stuff about, because like obviously you expect that the ex-pros to have better flick aim and all.
I mean,
sort of
Stewie
stuff,
2K is doing stupid things at the moment.
It is,
I
but, like,
want
how
that
did
man
he-
to stream, because, oh my god, one, he will break numbers, and two, the stuff he was doing on Summit stream was just, he was like,
No.
he was making Summit, like, just go, oh, like, I think they went 1-12 in a round, and I'm just like, this is Summit playing with randomers, yeah, but Summit's getting dumpstered. And I'm like, okay, this is Stewie 2K, obviously, and Mo and all these other guys who are insane at FPS, but I'm like, oh my god, Stewie, if you move, this could be insane. And like, what happens from players, right? Do players from Overwatch and CS:GO and Siege
XQC
move
was
over?
thinking about it, right? I mean,
Well, he
XQC
doesn't have a
was-
place to
but,
Overwatch, so.
Oh no, he got kicked or whatever. Well, like, the whatever.
Also,
he got
XQC
over-
won't.
Did you-
XQC will
did-
just stay a streamer.
Oh,
There's no way he's playing
Did you
competitive
see
again.
the shit when it was like, that was really funny to me. It was like, well, this is when you know that Overwatch has really probably spent itself now. It's like as soon as Valorant beta opened, you saw like a dozen pros from Overwatch quit and say, "Oh, I'm retiring from Overwatch. My time's done. Really enjoyed my time."
They don't
here."
want.
It's just like,
Who wants to do that
slowly-
travel? Who wants to do that?
slowly edging towards the Valorant door.
I mean, who wants to do that travel? Really? That's
I mean,
the big problem for that league.
Well, this is the thing, right? The actual league, which has done localized stuff, is LPL, and you listen to a lot of the pros from that, and they say, look, it is just really tiring going back and forth for each of the stages and stuff for the home stadiums.
Yeah.
I mean that's how it works for like. It's easier somewhere like the UK and you're doing the Premier League, right? Because it's
Oh, yeah.
what, an hour or
it is-
two drive most of the
At
time.
most, it's
Like,
4 hour
sometimes-
drive up to Sheffield or something, and you're just like, all right, lads, jump in the bus.
Yeah, it's Manchester down to London's probably a fairly long one. That's about
Yeah,
it.
that's
that'd be a 6 hour drive. Or you can just fly them for an hour. You got the
or
money.
Newcastle down, or whatever. That
Yeah,
kind of
exactly. Yeah.
But like, there is the thing with somewhere like China, right? Like, it is massive as a country, so it's always a flight.
Yeah, but when you've
And
got,
if you're
like,
playing multiple games,
internationals-
and if you're playing multiple games a week. On the other hand, though, having the opportunity to have your own stadium with your own home fans is pretty damn cool. And I can understand people wanting to give it a go.
I mean, that's going to be a big question moving forward for Valorant. How are they going to actually run the competitive scene? Is it going to be... I mean, obviously, you can't do anything at the moment outside of online tournaments for obvious social distancing reasons. But then it'll be moving forward. I wonder if they'll do something similar to what they've done with the LCS and all of the leagues in certain regions. Are they going to do region-specific and have it in one location, like in Berlin or in LA? Or are they going to do maybe something more a country to the LPL?
Oh, yeah.
With multiple different locations where teams
Well, in
move
terms of
around.
Valorant.
Yeah, for Valorant.
Yeah,
I mean,
okay.
there's lots of things. Are they going to do an Overwatch? Are they going to do Siege and just do majors? I think, honestly, majors would be the thing that would make the most amount of
If
sense.
they do open circuit into majors, that'd be the way to do it, I think. That because it's worked really well for CS:GO, right? But also,
And
like,
Siege.
Is that-
And
but
Siege.
that's
It's what's
not
given Siege
Riot.
that.
That's not Riot's mindset when it comes to esports necessarily.
I know.
So the question
but,
is,
I mean,
would be
they're already
curious to see.
changing a lot of things. There is voice chat already in Valorant. They have completely denied that for League for 10 years. So
Yeah, I get that with League as well, because there is also this. The League community on voice chat would be something. That's
But for a first-person shooter, it's arguably more important, where you can't just give pings. You need to
it's hard.
do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've been having a stream open this whole time because I want my key, please. I want my drop. It's 3 days dry so far. I'm really getting edgy. I want to play just so I can actually play. So I can actually play for the sake of playing. I don't even care now. But I mean, who knows? Anyway. That's Valorant. Gentlemen, is there anything else you want to cover before we go into our question time?
I think question time is looking good right now.
Good. All right. Our first question comes to us from Happens on our server. If you want to ask us questions, we always ping out a day or so before our podcast so we can give you some time to think about questions. If you have questions for us for next week, ask them over in our Discord. Even if you ask them now, probably useful, as we can use that for moving forward for topics potentially. Our first question again comes from Happen. It says, what do DFM have to do to fix if they want to win the LJL again? So we've already slightly covered this. Nymaera pulled us back a little bit from that curtain due to it being a question. What do they need to do? I mean, there's been the topic we've said a few times, but I'll hand it over to you, gentlemen, to begin this.
I mean, the easy one is fix the level 1, right? Their level 1s have been, at least
Yeah.
their defensive level 1s have been very lackluster, and it cost them a couple games, I think, in particular versus Sengoku Gaming. That would be something that I think is relatively easy to come back into and have a think about, because it's not like DFM haven't done good level 1s before, but
True.
they clearly got outthought versus Sengoku Gaming.
Yeah, I think what I put it, just to make it a little bit more of a broad statement, I think I'd say contingency plans, and that comes not just level 1s, because that's something, right? And in terms of like fixing level 1, having something to fall back to, if you know, like if they do X, we can do Y, stuff like that. And I think that Sengoku had a way better set of contingency plans for level 1s than DFM did in their series. I also think that comes down to certain objectives, certain team fights, and I think that they do pretty well at that when they have all the cards on the table and they know what's happening. But sometimes when a certain player's got a bit out of hand and they can just pop up at some area of the map and make things a little bit awkward for them, they don't necessarily respond too well to that. I also think that also applies to draft in terms of contingency and draft. And like, okay, they've picked this. What can we have to flex around to start doing some stuff and start making them feel uncomfortable? Because we know that DFM have varied playstyles and they have varied drafts at points. But in the Sengoku series, which is obviously what we're basing a lot of this off of, because they did lose, right? And that then goes to show, well, if they can't win a best of 5, or if they don't win a best of 5, then that doesn't bode well.
True.
I think it does come down to, we're talking about Saros and it's like, well, he's got a couple of flex picks, but we kind of largely know what he's going to go towards, and they have to lock it in early in case a lot of stuff is banned away. I think you need to prep another couple of picks, or start. I was surprised they didn't pick out something like the Heimerdinger or the Karma and just play their own game a bit more, instead of like playing to this very solved meta from Sengoku, where they just kind of played into their hands a couple of games.
So I think to counter that one, I kind of agree. I think the issue was that they thought they were trying to play their own game with the Gnar for Ebby, which just didn't really get them the wins.
True.
Like, we saw the idea. Like, there was 1 or 2 games where he got super far ahead, but then couldn't impact the team fights. Or he would go and try and impact the team fights and therefore not get the lead in lane to be particularly useful. And I actually think that they just need to have a bit of a rethink and say, okay, this Gnar at the moment isn't where it's at. Let's have a look at some other picks. We know things like imagine him on like I don't know, give him a Kennen if you want to do something like that even. Like, there are so many other picks that he could be picking that I think would be more consistent.
Reliable.
And I think if you yeah,
I think that's the other thing I'd say. It's literally just like reliability. I think that having Saros and Syndra helps. I think that basically in like
that wasn't
jungle and top, they need to go a little bit more reliable, because they're never going to get set. Let's be honest, because Ebby is shown on that champion. Face. There's Rex face, but the Gnar's not working for them. They need something which is like guaranteed go button.
Yeah.
I agree. I think contingency is a really nice way of thinking. I think that covers their pick and ban phase, which is a huge glare, which is my big problem with them at the moment.
Like, what's their plan B?
They just seem to be coasting on plan A for so long, and now it's shown that plan A actually needs to have a plan B and probably a plan C, because Sengoku and V3 probably have been thinking about these.
But like, we know they can do that, because remember the first matchup versus Rascal Jester, they kind of got drafted a little bit into a late game hole, and they just problem solved their way out of it.
Yeah,
we saw that again with Ebby's backdoor versus CGA, was it?
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah, they double TP'd him with Aria.
So it's not like they don't have the capability, which is why I think that's a good advice for them. You know it's within their wheelhouse. It's not saying, well, you got a month, let's just see if you can prep something new. It's saying, let's see what you can do with what you've done before.
And like, even if it is not to go, let's give Ebby something that can teleport in and team fight. Like, even if you want to go something like, okay, Ebby's going to go towards the Camille, and we'll 1-4 with him, and we'll basically set up all the vision in the world to make sure that Ebby can split on the 1-4, and he can win that way. If you want to do that, that's fine, but you do need to commit to something that's kind of like not trying to play the halfway house, particularly when he went like it was the... When actually, if you're going for like, okay, we're going to go for the Gnar for side lane pressure, and then we're going to teleport in for dragon fights where our only engage is this Gnar, the only way that we're ever going to get a decent fight is Sengoku Gaming being around at the right time as the rage bar's in the right place for him to get in and get engaged. Like, that is a long chain of things that needs to go right for a good fight to happen.
In the weirdest way, from what I'm getting this, is it's almost sound like you both somewhat want Ebby to take a leaf out of Apperman's.
Yeah,
but
a little bit maybe, or at least Paz's, right? Like, that's the other way to go. Is like get Aatrox, because we know Ebby destroys on Aatrox, right? And if you want to go that route, and there's like the LJL hasn't punished Aatrox,
or something like that.
Yeah, and just like, okay, we can get onto the AD carry and slap them.
Yeah.
Or onto a Victor and slap him. Like, there is a problem with Varus and Victor. What do we do? Well, if I run an Aatrox at you, what are you going to do?
They self-peel for themselves well enough to like ignore the initial engage and then restart the fight. That's what they've been doing.
So, but then they need to start doing that, is what you're both saying, right?
Yeah.
Because it's definitely a problem that has been coming up for DFM, and that's why they have not found themselves in the finals at the moment.
Not yet.
Not yet.
No, they gotta work a bit more to get there. They haven't got their lock already on it as they might have expected.
I'm just looking forward to
I would really like to see Rumble picked up by Saros if you can.
Yeah, and I think it's definitely a champion. I think it feels like a champion that would be his kind of style.
It's more towards that kind of thing. Yeah, his Ornn was pretty okay. I didn't mind that, but I think if he picks up Rumble, that's
It'll be
not that I mind things like a Cassiopeia or a Syndra either per se, but like I think the Rumble would be better.
I mean, it's just more champions, right? And half the time, it's rarely a bad thing to have some more picks and then have some off picks that people won't be expecting from you. I mean, that's my big problem with Xeros at the moment, is he just plays only the off picks. He's not playing. He's not playing only the off picks. He's playing some of the meta, some of the off. He's not able to play all the meta and all of the off, which is what
he doesn't play the S tier,
which is what his peers on the team do. They play the S tier, but they also can play their B tier stuff, which is absurd for them, right? I think Ebby is a prime person who can play the S tier, but can also play B tier, and he can play it as if it was an S tier. I think I would just like to maybe see Xeros maybe just start flexing a bit of those muscles. I know, mate, you might be maybe the best mid laner in the region, and we just aren't giving you the full respect for it. But I kind of need you to start doing the crazy stuff that I saw Bjergsen doing yesterday. Kind of want to start seeing that.
And the other thing for me is like he's not got the champion pool someone like Ninja.
Yeah.
Who can just like take a blow in the champion select and still have something. I think that Saros kind of still forces his team to pick him something early. He has some really good picks. Don't get me wrong.
He does. Yeah.
He does. I think.
You put him second for God's sake.
Exactly. Yeah. Over the whole split, I think it's been really impressive in a lot of ways. But like his champion pool is not infallible, and yeah, that means that it forces him to a lot of different things because it's not just his champion pool isn't infallible. It's not infallible, and he also doesn't play LeBlanc and Zoe.
So far as we know, anyway.
Yeah.
We haven't seen him pull it.
You assume they can play it, but you don't know to...
He's never played it in his career, really.
Yeah, you assume he can play it, but you don't know how good on solo queue and everything else. We don't know because so much of this information seems to be guarded, which is kind of fair enough. The pros don't want all their information known. Our second question, coming from Ishiki, is who is the most handsome player of the LJL? Gentlemen. Oh my.
I mean, I've been looking around at some of the different portrait. Just have a look.
I mean,
as rumor
again, this is our opinion, and we're having fun, and we're memeing here.
So as rumor has it, and again, I've not really been checking the gossip channels for this really, but as rumor has it, Ray Farkey is quite well appreciated by the fans in general. He's got a big fan.
He's got a bit of that baby face going on.
There is a little bit of the.
He's got good choice in glasses.
I mean, Ebby, obviously, the long-time man, myth, and legend of the LJL, known for fans around the world. I mean,
but there's something about Saros' facial structure which is quite appealing.
True.
Like Ebby's, yeah, I think Ebby's maybe a front runner, and then Apperman.
Oh,
just this guy.
That hair, that dude.
Oh my God. That guy.
Just beautiful. As a man with curly hair myself, I appreciate a man that has gone for the full perm, just fully invested into it, and always seen now with his trusty bandana across the forehead. Keep the sweat out the eyes from when he's carrying too hard. He can't carry no more.
He's channeling his inner Rambo.
Oh yeah. Oh, 100%.
I mean, let's go with. I think Ebby's cute. We'll go with Ebby.
Ebby, Apperman, Ray Farkey. It's the top laners. It's the top.
This is it.
All
That's it,
all the attractive men, Paz, Kog, yeah, Daisha, Nunyan, yeah, all right, yeah, top lane,
All right, that's where it is.
and Nap as well. I mean, top laners are our most attractive men. All right, I think that was not the question we were given, but that's the question we're giving. We're gonna say a group of people because it's far safer to say a group than to say an individual.
The most attractive person is the person listening and subscribing to our content.
Oh, but they don't play for the LJL. But if they do, then if you do, then you win, sir. You win.
So this is just an indirect shout out to Corporal. Right?
Shut up. We weren't gonna. You didn't have to say explicitly. God. Our final question comes from Nymaera. I don't know this name initialized. Do you? Nymaera.
He's got a very familiar profile picture, but I don't know why.
I mean, I guess this is a question asked to me because I asked people for questions, so I'm guessing this is for me. It says, "Who's my favorite co-host?"
Wow, yeah, it's a good question.
I mean, on the cast, I have no co-host. I am the only host, and you guys are the color commentator and the play-by-play caster.
Narcissist. It's him.
So I mean, by default, it's the only co-host is me. So by proxy, it's myself, and I mean, I can't say I'm surprised. Good.
Is like, you know, like when you're playing like those visual novels, like there's the one true ending after you've done all the different routes. The one true ending is just Lexi.
Yeah, it's just me. I can color host. I can vaguely yell that things are happening, and I can introduce everybody to the wonderful cast that we have here at the LJL. So I can kind of do it all. It works better if the game's not League of Legends, frankly. If it is a card game, then I am far more in my element. Or if it's Teamfight Tactics, I can do that game. I can do that game. Just League's definitely a learning process.
I've got to give, I think my favorite co-host probably got to go to Nymaera, if only because I live with him and I don't want him to murder me in my sleep, because he would.
My favorite was also Nymaera. No, sorry.
Okay, so two of us pick ourselves, and Initia1ise picked his younger brother because older brothers have to foster your younger brother and siblings, obviously.
It's also because I value my life.
Yeah, I think that's a smart move.
Your birthday present is going to be Initia1ise. It's your birthday present.
See the lights going
also,
down.
Also, he shouts real good about League of Legends.
I do.
He does do the shouting about the League of Legends. Obviously, both of them can't be my favorite, so I have to pick myself. It's like a child. It's like a mother or father picking their favorite child. They secretly have a favorite, but you can't say it out loud, so you just say yourself, or you say them both.
Because Sam and I both know it's him, so it's fine.
Oh! I mean, my grandmother has already said in front of all the grandchildren that I was the favorite, and I'm just like,
that's a rough one.
That's a big yikes from me. So I mean, that's
like on a scale of like small to big, that's a medium yike.
That was a big yikes, because I remember my sister looking over and just going, and I'm just like, I didn't ask for this. We were talking about
I never asked for this.
Completely different stuff related to a barbecue, and then she decides to come up with a topic. I don't know, man. I don't know. I mean, the LJL is definitely, though, my favorite region. That will be for sure, because if anything, I stay more in tune with it more than any other region, because it's easier for me.
Fun fact to quickly come over, because I was looking for
Sure.
Seros, like current account. I can't find it, but I was looking over his
for his
past
relationship
results.
status after looking how
That's
good he
exactly
looks.
it. Like Seros, hit me up, man. You know, I'll love to take you on a date.
I'm very desperate right now.
That's it. Yeah, coronavirus be damned. I'll fly to you. But you know, apparently he does play. Like, apparently he did play a fair amount of Zoe in 2019 and 2018.
So it's just him refusing to play
along with
it.
Azir, along with or the team hasn't even. Or also Azir.
Are you looking at the Sam? Are you looking at the DFM games or the Seros games? Because if you're looking at
Seros
DFM
games, I'm looking at Seros games.
Sweet.
Okay.
You have to keep it Seros.
I mean,
it's not loads, but some. Yeah.
it's interesting. It's even more interesting that he's not decided to pick it up in the LJL. Maybe that's a playoff thing that he was secretly holding, and then maybe True Power will come out. Maybe he will go Super Saiyan on LeBlanc and Zoe, and potentially pick up their team a few wins versus V3 they might not be expecting to pick up, or at least from V3's point of view. Would be an interesting one. I am going to end this podcast off. So I do want to thank, obviously, Initia1ise and Nymaera for coming along and doing this podcast with me. We, obviously, all of these things that we have said out of our mouth holes are our own views and opinions. They do not represent Riot Games, Riot Japan, or any of their partners. It also does not fully represent the LJL Officially Unofficial and what during our cast. These are our own thoughts and things, and we are our own people at the end of our day. By all means, please do check out our social media and our Discord server. Links are always in the show notes and in the descriptions and the doobly doops that around that you can find links for. You can find our audio version of our podcast on almost all media music sources, assuming I am not going to have a rant again about SoundCloud rappers. Obviously, be safe, be healthy, and be happy in these troubling and slightly depressing times that we are all going through at the moment. Just make sure to check in on those around you and to be just say hi. Maybe send that text message you wouldn't normally send. Just send that message. Say hello to a friend that you haven't maybe said hello to for a few days.
Yeah. Because it is important just to say, like, obviously try and be happy, but like it's okay to not be happy. It's a weird time, and life is weird at the best of times, to be honest. So, like, yeah, just care for your individuals, care for the people around you, because we are the best support system we have for each other. And, you know, and in some ways, reaching out into these little community things and being part of all of these little things going on, that helps too. I mean, I know that I'm definitely getting through this with a lot of video games and a lot of chatting to various other people in the esports scene, doing my casting, doing all this stuff. Brother's here too. I guess he's around. But yeah, no, just having people around helps, and it is okay to not be okay.
Yes.
Initia1ise, any closing thoughts?
I think you guys covered it pretty well there. I mean, stay safe, stay home, stay in contact, and
stay hydrated.
Yeah, all of that kind of deal.
Hydro homies.
And talk to people if you need to. Like, you know, you don't, like, isolated as we are in terms of distance, you don't actually have to be properly isolated. There's loads of ways to stay in touch with people, and make sure you stick to them. Go to a virtual pub. Great.
Very good. He's going to keep plugging these virtual pubs. I might at some point.
Virtual pub night.
As a person that doesn't really partake in alcohol, it's going to be definitely something I'd have to maybe. I mean, I've got alcohol. I've legit had a bottle of alcohol in my room.
I literally have some next to me, just in case the podcast gets that bad.
Oof. I mean, I've got alcohol. I just don't drink. So I mean, maybe we'll do a drunk episode one day.
Maybe that'd be like episode 50.
That'll be episode 50 Patreon goal if it's hit. Like we'll fully commit into that, lean into that. But for myself, Alex, and for Initia1ise and Nymaera, I want to say thank you so much for listening and or watching, and we hope you have a lovely rest of your day.